Meeting of the Board of Directors of Celebration Residential Owners Association to order. It's 6:14 p.m. on February 27th, 2019. Sorry. Is that better or not better?
Yeah, I think they're saying they need your microphones closer.
I got the bad mic tonight. First of all, thank you all for being here. This is not the annual meeting. That's next week. Second, we apologize. We had some transition issues. We had a CCS meeting. We'll report on that during the agenda. We had that meeting earlier. It ended at 4 minutes of 6, and the transition time to go to live stream was not within 4 minutes. So that's like a 10-minute transition time. So I apologize for being late. We'll start with homeowner comments. Let me make an announcement first, or two announcements regarding this. First of all, we understand that there's a member of the press present. We very much welcome press here. No homeowner should be or feel obligated to speak to the press. You're welcome to speak to the press. No obligation. And then for the homeowner comments, this is for homeowners to make comments. We have about 12 who have indicated they would like to speak. We will strictly enforce the 3 minutes. Rachel will provide a 30-second flag and then a time's up flag, and we will need to halt that. We need to honor that. That's going to take us, if everyone's using 3 minutes, that's taking, you do the math.
And David, just to add, her phone is being utilized for that 3 minutes, so if you hear her phone going off, she's not taking phone calls during the meeting. That is her tool that she's using for this.
Okay, so that's her time. That's her timer.
Correct.
You can also use the 3-minute rule on the board members too, and then we'll speed up.
Thank you. Thank you. Vaughn, was that an acceptance? Is that acceptance?
I think that Jackson.
Okay. So we'll start with Eileen Barr. We're just going to go through the list. Eileen Barr is first. Gary Hudspeth is second, by the way. Batter up.
Contact circle right next door.
Yeah, batter up.
Sure, I didn't.
Thank you. Eileen, please.
Yes, Eileen Barr, 1138 Mosaic Drive. I have some serious concerns about the proposed July 4th event. I would like to make it clear that I am speaking for my husband Jerry and myself, not for the Special Events Committee. The Special Events Committee, of which I am a member, and as far as I am a member of the Special Events Committee, and as far as I know, it is not at all involved in planning or working on July 4th. The first line of the July 4th budget narrative that we were sent speaks of community-wide events. To me, that means Celebration residents. I look at the budget and the plans, and I see a party open to anyone who wants to come. Just the presence of the need of a park and ride implies lots of cars coming into town. And just as there are many residents who love fireworks, there are probably equally as many who worry about clogged roads. If Lexington wants to run a large public event that brings lots of potential customers into downtown Celebration, and as long as they make the proper preparations, they have every right to do so. But what I see planned is CROA throwing an event for Lexington, which includes very expensive entertainment held in the downtown area where a stage has to be built and where all the work and risks are borne by CROA for a lot of people who do not live here. Just as a precedent, I am opposed to Lexington having no responsibility for security, setup, bathrooms, building and then removing the stage, hiring and housing the entertainment, and more. And then CROA gets to clean up everything. All Lexington has to do is write a check for the fireworks and a small amount, just $2,500 for the stage. And one more comment. I spoke to my daughter who went to the last time we had fireworks on July 4th, and she said at the time it was packed. Lakeside was packed, downtown was packed. And since then, because it's been a while, we have built Spring Lake, we have expanded Celebration, and if you look around and you go down any road, you see lots and lots of new developments. So whatever crowds we had the last time, I think you can expect bigger crowds this time.
Thank you, Eileen.
Thank you, Eileen.
Gary, and then Steve Northridge's follow-up.
Good evening, Gary Hudspeth, 1471 Resolute. Tonight I'm speaking as a resident of Spring Lake. Spring Lake has the landscaping taken care of by service area contract. I'm happy to report that you may know occasionally I'll walk around and take an inventory of all the homes and look at the landscape status, applying community standards design guidelines to that. I'm happy to report that Yellowstone there's been an improvement since last year. I counted about 34% of the homes had one or more landscape problems or issues. That compares favorably to last year of 44%. So that's a great reduction, and I appreciate Doug and his team for doing a good job. Now, having said that, there are some problem areas that could be corrected. Last summer and fall, we had a great infestation of cinch bugs and mole crickets, which destroyed quite a few lawns, including mine. Now, you may realize that cinch bugs chew the grass and emit an enzyme, which then goes right down to the roots and kills the grass, and it will not grow back. According to community standards, if you cannot have bare ground and you can't grow grass from sprigs, you have to replace it with sod. So, having said that, I would have been on my third letter this month of having bare ground and no sod in certain places of my lawn, and so would other people too. So I would like to ask the board and service area to implement sodding of Spring Lake areas that are bare ground and dead grass and just plain weeds, so that we don't have to be, that we can follow in compliance with community standards. And I ask that they follow the same community standards and, more importantly, the timeline for getting that corrected.
Have you discussed this with Todd?
Todd is not service area.
Okay.
That would be Susanna.
Susanna? Okay.
Yeah.
Have you discussed it with her?
Today and last week. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
You have Zoysia out there, right?
Yes.
And that change pipe goes after Zoysia?
Oh, does it ever? You can read online about that. Yes. Mhm. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank,
Gary.
thank you, Gary. We have Steve Northridge, followed by Kathy Pelosi.
Steve Northridge, 1130 Tapestry Drive. Two separate issues. I'll start with the first one. I'll keep everything within 180 seconds. First thing is recent musical events on the Great Lawn. Most recently, I attended the one with New Era. Always they're great events. I always enjoy the music, but there seems to be a pervasive problem that's going on. This time, food trucks were offering food and tables were placed on the stage, placed in front of the stage. About 10 to 20 children between the age of 4 and 8 years old were running and screaming during the majority of the performance. The children also went on stage and were doing cartwheels in front of the performers. One of the performers asked that they stay off the stage with minimal result. The gentleman actually got out of his chair and asked to take the microphone and asked them to respect the performers and respect the people that were there to see the result. Once again, with no result is all. Sadly, this is really a pattern I've seen in several of the events that I've seen downtown, and I'm reluctant to actually go to another one because it is just a very poor experience. I suggest there should be some expectations set, possibly through announcements before and during the event. When notices are sent out and so forth, also I suggest someone from Town Hall be there or security be present to intervene when things really get out of control, because they were fundamentally out of control in the last several events that I've been there, and there's been no one that has said anything from any official capacity. That's issue one. Issue two is unrelated. It's the balconies in the business district. About 2 years ago, 6x6 pressure-treated posts were installed, presumably as temporary measure to hold the balconies along a number of the businesses on Celebration Avenue. In the last few months, these were painted white. What is the plan for permanent repairs to this? This is ongoing. I can't imagine if I did that with my home, that would be allowed to go on. So I think something has to go on with that. I don't know who's taking action on that, or I go to CROA for that. You don't get much action there, but nonetheless, it's an issue that needs to be dealt with. I think that's my time. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. So it's Kathy Pelosi, and we're following that with Betty Zippin.
Hi, I'm Kathy Pelosi. I live at 901 Waterside Lane. I'm reading two letters that I've been asked to read because the people were unavailable to come. First one is dated February 21st, 2019. Members of CROA, we wish to bring to your attention that a business is being run in Celebration that is possibly counter to our current regulations. We are referring to 717 East Lawn, which is being used as a home for troubled girls, Providence Pass. This is a business.
Mr. President.
Yes, thank you.
I'm not sure that this is appropriate to identify in public. First of all,
Oh, John, identify the address.
Yeah.
We can strike that. That's a good idea.
Secondly, I would like to know who the author of the letter is. Are they a resident of Celebration?
Yes, I have.
Who is the resident? Who is the author?
The residents are Catherine Sherman and Thomas Faraki.
Can we verify that they're residents?
Can we verify the address?
I don't have an address
Okay.
on this one.
I can't do it right now.
We've never done that before, but I will say that these letters were brought to me very late last night to my home. It was somewhere between 9 and 10. I've had a very exhausting day, meetings, and we just had another meeting before this. There were, I believe, 4 letters brought to me.
Could I ask that those letters be duplicated and distributed to the board?
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Not read publicly?
Oh, not
Okay.
read publicly?
Not read publicly.
Okay.
There's another one that doesn't say anything about the name or...
Well, since we haven't seen the letters, I don't know what's in them, and I don't know what else is going to be said there. You've
Are we
already said
concerned?
something that shouldn't have been said.
I've read the letters. I don't see a problem.
Is this the
They're allowed
place
to
to hear
speak.
that?
People are
or is
allowed
there
to
a-
speak. Just omit the names, or do you want to look at them and let
Do you want me to
somebody talk?
omit the
don't know. I
name
don't
of the place?
Leave the address now.
Okay, I'll leave out the address.
Okay.
Okay, it says, please, this is a business in a residential area. When there are more girls than rooms, they are sent to a residential home in North Village. Please look into this situation. We pay a great deal of money to live in Celebration, and this home is counter to Disney lifestyle. The second letter is dated February 25th of 2019, and it's written by Wilhelmina Coravere, 236 Longview Avenue, Celebration, Florida. To whom it may concern.
Neighbor.
I write to ask you that you look into the use of the property at 222 Longview Avenue. I thought we couldn't tell
President,
what it was for.
Too late now, it's on.
This is exactly what I didn't want to have happen, so now we've done it again.
Oh, well.
I will say that I tried to handle this privately. I addressed this with our management company, and I was told unless the residents near these properties wrote a letter and spoke to this, there was nothing that could be done.
Is this
This
the
is a
se-
very serious situation. We've already had a suicide at one of these addresses. I would like to allow this to be done and on record so that this can be handled.
Is
Mr.
there a
President, I'd
different-
just like to clarify, management probably would say that we would need affidavits from neighbors because we want to build a case and we want to be able to win the case. So we want to get as much information as possible. It doesn't need to be read publicly, though. We can get those letters.
Yeah, so we can deal with
during
that through
business
normal
hours.
staff
Correct.
channels.
So-
I would ask that those be given to Rachel, or Steve, how do we handle this?
I can take them and I can.
Give them to Steve.
If you'd like them back, I can get them back to you. I just need to get.
Okay, we have another reader, Doug.
Thank you.
Can you, we have 2 more letters.
We're dealing with, we're dealing with Kathy right now.
Can I just let the record reflect, there are 4 letters from 4
I
neighbors.
think she reflected
Devin,
that.
what's the gist of
The
the
gist
complaint
of the
generally?
complaint is there is
That way we
an
can just go from
organization,
Business and residential district.
there's a,
Is it a,
the gist of it is there are 2 residential properties in our community that are renting individual rooms to girls between the ages of 13 and 17. They're minors. We've already had a suicide at one of the properties. These girls can be picked up from any state in the country forcibly with their parents' permission and brought back here if they have any problems with anything from mild drug usage to runaway to religion problems to whatever that's between them and the company is called Providence Pass. As far as I know, there is no, and we checked, as of this date, there is no legitimate license for this business. There is no proper filing for a school. They said it's a religious school. There's no filings that's been made. And this came to my attention, earlier, it's been all a blur, a few months ago, and I brought it to a board member's attention. We've proceeded to find one of the properties, correct? You guys remember, was it November, Jackson?
I'll tell you, typically, we don't talk.
Personal privilege. We are dealing with this.
Well, not the other address. There's another address that was not dealt with.
I have a third address for them that is actually registered as a business.
We want to know, I'm sure that we want to know all about this, but to make public statements here does 2 things. One is it increases our liability if those statements turn out to not be true, and we don't know if they're true or not true.
We
just
know
don't
there's girls, and we know there's a school, and we know we've checked on it.
Might I finish?
Okay.
And secondly, beyond the liability question, is the fact that we have already given at least 2 of these properties to management. They are pursuing it, and in our board packages, we have information about the fining process. And to the extent that we don't discuss fines publicly in other situations, we should not be doing that here. I am in no way excusing what's happening, but to be talking about transportation and other events and other things related to this is way beyond our purview. So I would respectfully ask that we not have this conversation.
Yeah, and we have management dealing with it, and there may also be county or state violations that need to be done with.
I was told we needed letters on the second property, Jackson, and I apologize. So
We
the
have
letters
separate
haven't been
channels.
Give Steve.
So
Just give
are we
those
finished
two.
with Kathy is finished?
Yeah.
We're going to Betty Zippin.
Okay.
Do you want to
Betty's,
just-
Betty's done.
Betty's done, and now we have Roll Brockway.
Wait, I'm Betty.
Okay,
Betty, I'm
Betty's
sorry.
not done. I
I'm
didn't
sorry,
think
Betty.
Betty was done.
Betty, what?
Okay, great thing
Betty
to
Zippin?
follow. I'm Betty Zippin. I live at 1557 Resolute, and I live along the Spring Lake Park. And just recently, as I step out on my patio and look across the new, across Celebration Boulevard, I see the new Cube Smart building, and I also see a row of portable U-Haul billboards in the form of parked trucks. And so my question to the board is that the approved usage of that property? And if so, how does this align with the standards that we have in the community of Celebration?
So, thank you. So that's on Celebration Boulevard across from Spring Lake,
Yes.
which is TCC
Right
property being
across
sold.
Kiowa.
So that's outside of CROA's purview. Am I correct, Steve?
Yes, so
you wanna explain that?
it is a property that was purchased by a private business from TCC. It's still under TCC regulations as they are under construction. Once the construction is completed, the handover of that compliance goes to the CROA manager, Susanna. We have communicated with TCC, though, and I know they've followed up with the company about moving the U-Hauls. I understand there's probably been a couple other incidents since TCC has, but we'll continue to follow up with them to
So
ensure. that
when we
they're-
hear that, we pass it off to the appropriate entity
Right, and
in
if
the
it
alphabet
happens,
soup.
right, and if it happens again after the construction's completed and it's signed off on and closed, then it would go through the CROA final.
Then it goes to
process.
canola process, okay.
And just for clarity for Betty and for everybody else in the audience, there are a lot of letters.
Yeah.
TCC is the Celebration Company, that's the developer of the property. So just
And
so
CROA
everybody
is Celebration
can follow.
Non-Residential Owners Association.
So thank you, Brady, for bringing that to our attention. We'll pass that
Yeah,
along.
and I see Susanna's connected, so they can share some information. And
So next is Roe Brockway, followed by Tom Yusuki. Roe Brockway?
I think we may need to stop this one.
I don't know
Jack,
what's it about.
it's Providence Pass.
Oh, yeah, no.
If you're speaking,
Ron Brockway.
Oh, Ron Brockway, I apologize. Couldn't read the
Yeah,
handwriting.
that girl up there was not Ron Brockway.
Okay.
And I don't hear good, but I know you're talking about the subject that I want to bring up on, and that is the house, halfway houses on East Lawn.
That's what we just dealt with.
Pardon?
I think we just dealt with that.
What was, I didn't hear it, and that's very good because it works well in marriage.
The business, we're talking about the business in the residential area?
I
Is that
think,
the same property?
if that's what you call it, but I call in, and I can't get an answer from anybody. I try to get the compliance people, they put me off, and they said, well, you don't know what it is. And I gave them the address on East Lawn, and they said, oh, yeah, well, we're working on that. And there is no halfway house. The hell, there ain't no halfway house. There is a halfway house. And not only that, there's one up on North Cleveland, or North Celebration.
So we're,
And we're well aware of that one. I have good information on
ask for the
that.
letter.
huh?
There's a letter, I believe. If you'd like to ask for the letter.
Yeah,
I
do you
can
have,
take that.
you want to pass the letter
I
on?
have the letter, a letter given right to her.
Okay, so Debbie has the letter, and make sure that,
Would you like me to take a copy of that also?
yeah, he'll copy it.
She's got it, I don't have any more
Do you
copies.
have that, Debbie?
Could you check in your pile?
No,
I
it's
asked-
not part of this file.
so Debbie will get the letter forwarded.
If you don't have it, you might need to ask. Oh, there it is.
There it is,
Name
yeah.
and it's on, is that it?
Yeah, that's
Just pass
mine.
that down.
Okay.
Pass these down just in
They can
case.
know who it's
So
from.
management is going to be following through on that.
Okay, well, we say it isn't a halfway house. I kind of think it is a halfway house. That's my opinion.
Okay.
And we talk of young girls being in these places.
So, yeah.
We know that as a fact. And we also know that they're staying there overnight. And the definition is what we hear of a halfway house, we always think of guys coming out of prison going to a halfway house. That's only part of the story.
So we have this.
A halfway house,
Yeah.
a halfway house is an institution that allows people with physical, mental, and emotional disabilities
That's right.
or those with criminal backgrounds to learn or relearn the necessary skills to reintegrate into society and better support and care for themselves. That's basically what a halfway house is. It isn't necessarily criminals. It can be anything. It can be mental. We have an RAD here in Kissimmee, which is a halfway house for kids that are wild and throw oatmeal in the morning and everything. That's a halfway house. We have them up in Ohio where I live, halfway houses.
Okay,
And they're not criminal halfway houses.
Ron, we're looking into that now. We know about it, and we're looking into it as a board and town staff. So we know about it, we're looking into it. It's being looked
Okay,
into.
and we are doing something
Yes,
about
we're
it.
looking into it.
Because the
But
part
sometimes
that
things get
bothers me
smaller.
is that a real estate person that sells something
Yeah.
has to disclose it.
Okay.
And that's going to drive the properties down, if in fact this is what's going on.
So,
Mr. Anderson, can I just add a statement for anybody else that wants to address short-term leasing or running businesses out of
Please,
homes? The CROA board, in the 5 years that I've been here, it's been unanimous that they have had a zero-tolerance policy when it comes to this. Management is here to enforce, and we will enforce to the fullest extent of the ability to enforce, but we have to gather evidence. The reality is I wish that we could just go say stop breaking the rule and people would just stop breaking it. I'm getting stopped on time. But that's not what happens. People don't stop when we
You're
ask them
done.
to, so we have to follow through a
You're following-
process.
you're following a
we'll continue to
legitimate
follow that
process.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you. So we have Tom Basuki coming up.
I'm Tom, I live at 1598 Resolute, and here to talk about the chemicals that are put down that entail Roundup. I know all of you may know what's happening out in the areas with Roundup. I'm here to tell you, and I've done a lot of homework on all of this, Roundup is not an item I think we should be having down. I have a dog, and I can show you what currently happens when this dog goes out after they put down Roundup. They currently do not do a good job of putting down indicators where they put Roundup. Okay? It is a toxic chemical recognized in 2015 to the World Health Organization as causing cancer, non-Hodgkin's. Okay, and dogs happen to hold the active more in them than us. Gets on their paws, they lick, they eat, and if anybody does any homework on a Roundup, it is a harmful chemical. My ask, and I don't know if you all had the opportunity to read the links I gave you all about the other detail, the other side of Roundup. I'm asking to look for a chemical alternative to Roundup. There are kids in our neighborhood, dogs and cats. There are 2 dogs that now have cancer. 1 dog, 3 years old, ate something out there and died. I am not saying it's a direct cause to all of those. However, if you all have had the opportunity to look at the material safety data sheets for any of them. This is not any item that I think should be put down.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Can I just briefly, he's written us, the board, a few times, and we've had some discussions with vets and areas, but this is technically my last meeting, would like to recommend, because I can't obviously vote on anything that's not on the agenda, recommend that the Yellowstone, you're here, back there, just take a look at the alternate natural chemicals for weed control. I do use them in my yard. Whether this is true or not is completely, irrelevant, but just take a look at them. My dog does seizure after it's applied, so I stopped applying it, 15 years ago. I have a little more weeds, but I try to keep them in the bag. So anyway, if you guys could take a look at it.
And then work with Todd and Steve on that.
If the board wants, that's completely up to these guys. On another meeting, I can't recommend any of that, but thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And so Todd and Steve, I know, will be following up on that. Dave Phillips, and that'll be followed by Reed Shankweiler.
Good evening. My name is Dave Phillips, 1105 Blaze Street, and I've been a resident here since
Dave, I'm sorry, can someone help him? Put the mic straight up because he's tall.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've been a resident here since 2002. What I'd like to bring to your attention today is what I think is an unfulfilled need and an unrealized need that you may have here in Celebration. You can probably tell by looking at my face I'm probably not quite as young as some of the other folks here. And what's happened is I found out that I just don't run as fast and jump as high as I used to. And as I look here in Celebration, we seem to be lacking in an area that can offer recreational opportunities to people such as myself and a particular sport that I play, croquet, and approximately 30, 40, 50 other people who enjoy it as well. And what I'd like to recommend is you take a look at the Parks and Recreation idea that's coming up, is the opportunity to include in that plan an opportunity for what I call soft lawn sports. This is things like croquet, bocce, lawn bowling, things that people who would like to do something besides sit on their butt and play mahjong and play cards, maybe something a little bit more active and maybe even help us live a little bit longer, have that opportunity to enjoy here in Celebration. And I think that by taking that opportunity, not only would you be helping folks like myself, but it's also an opportunity for people to play other sports or for families to play. When grandchildren or families come to visit, you'll also be able to have the opportunity for them to use it as well. I guess that would probably pretty much sum it up, with the possible exception for those who are financially inclined. Having something like this in town could also probably increase your property values. So thank you very much. And if anyone is interested, we do play at 4:30 at the Windmill Restaurant, and you're all welcome to come down and play.
Which of the sports, which of the soft lawn sports do you play? I mean, at the Windmill.
At the Windmill, we play croquet.
Okay.
For those who, we're playing on a little teensy-weensy court that's about a third of the size that it should be, and we're at the graciousness, quite frankly, of the golf course people.
Thank you.
They let us do that.
Thank you very much.
4:30 on what day?
4:30 on
Brian, would
Wednesday.
you like
Come
to
down,
comment?
we'll teach you to play croquet, and you'll never be different.
Brian?
Actually, I'd like to thank you very much for your comments. When we originally, with the facilities plan, saw croquet there so much, it was a little almost confusing to me. And then at a Celebrators event, I saw the events happening, and a lot of people bent my ear. So thank you for the comments. I think they actually help.
Yeah. Well, and we do have quite a few green spaces throughout the community, and I don't have my card on me, but if you'd like to reach out to me tomorrow or Friday, I can see if we can help you identify a larger spot so that you can start.
That would be great. Thanks, Steve.
To address that for you, I have looked at every single spot here. The problem that you're playing with the lawn sports is the grass that we have here, even when it's mowed.
The St. Augustine,
You
right.
can imagine trying to putt a golf ball.
Yeah, that makes sense.
On those particular things, just totally impossible. So what we just simply need is a soft lawn sports area that would enable people to play some of these sports that don't involve cleats and tackling and all those kinds of things.
I understand.
That's a very helpful description, and I think you'll see the word croquet and bocce on an upcoming survey that all residents will receive during the month of March. So you will see those words, and thank you for that in the January meeting.
Correct.
So thank you very much for that, and I've learned a new term, soft lawn sports. So we have Reed Shankweiler.
Reed Shankweiler, 507 Long Meadow. I'm here to talk about the roofing issues with the townhouse we own at 1144 Celebration Avenue.
Could I just have and ask, which service area is that in?
South Village.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
I'm going to ask.
This is another parliamentarian maneuver. Go ahead.
It's not a maneuver, Mr. Shankweiler. We're in really difficult position because we have, as you know, engaged legal counsel here.
Yes.
So if you feel compelled to make a comment tonight about it, I don't think we can stop you. We can't comment, we can't do anything publicly because we've got a confidential, privileged relationship. So I'm going to ask you to be very careful with your language here about what you want to say publicly and how you want to phrase this, and whether or not you might prefer to put your comments in writing and send them to the board and let us address them that way.
That sounds...
Yeah, I think you're okay. I mean, as long as you don't accuse anyone of anything horrible or whatever, I think he's a smart man. He's a doctor.
This is purely my experience.
So Rachel, you're going to restart the clock, please?
Yeah.
If you would.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My experience with the roofing in the townhouse was that I had a tenant there, and he came to me saying, hey, I'm getting flat tires, and they're throwing wood down in the backyard and everything. So I said, okay, I'll go and talk to the guys. So I went and talked to the guys. Nobody could talk to me in any language. About 5 minutes later, some guy comes up, and he looks at me, and, okay, these people were rude, bottom line. Getting on, they kept doing the same thing after I asked them to stop. Raiding, nails and wood and stuff like this. The guy was getting mad. Okay, he's paying me rent. That was a little upsetting. Subsequently, without a roof or tarp or anything like that, it rains, unfortunately. I'm taken back. And I'd like you to address it in all fairness, and I hope that it is not punitive to the homeowners, because we in good faith have been paying for, your stewardship for many years, or someone's. And I just want to add anecdotally, as a physician, I used to live next to a bunch of crop sprayers, and they all died of lymphoma.
Thank you. So thank you.
Thank you.
So next we have Heidi, and then followed by Laura Rousseau.
Okay, Idero Heidi, 2 properties, 507 Long Meadow Street and 1144 Celebration Avenue. This is with respect to, again, South Village townhouses, but I'm just going to discuss or dissect an email that was sent out to all the owners. I'm not going to name names or accuse anybody because I really don't know what's going on. First of all, I understand there was an engineer, a roofing engineer, who came out and put out a 700-page, very thorough, I understand, engineering report. We have not been privy to this report. We have no idea what's going on, but 700 pages sounds like there are some issues that need to be looked at and addressed. So we respectfully request that we have access to this report and that we can review it, all of the residents, the owners of South Village townhouses.
Can I stop you for one moment?
Yeah.
Yes.
The report is available.
Okay.
It is available?
Yeah, can you guys?
Susanna will get your information and she can.
Yeah.
I just gave my card to the gentleman, and if you send me your name and email, then we will.
Okay.
Are you guys
Okay.
the same house? Or is it?
Yes.
Okay.
And
Yes.
So the email say that this is.
do me a favor, if they didn't know it was available, could you just check their email address on record before they leave, or
Yeah,
somebody?
you might have a
Thank you.
different email or something. Okay, I understand there's an attorney that has been hired by CROA representing, I'm not sure if the attorney's representing CROA or representing the residents. We don't know anything about this attorney. We would like to have also more information about who this attorney is and who he is representing. We understand the points that they are looking at is the cost and the time to litigate this. The likelihood of success, I believe that the likelihood of success would be very high given the fact that it's a 700-page report. So I really believe that we have a lot of information to work with as far as litigation. They also are telling us that they're going to discuss litigation strategies, but again, we are not allowed to discuss litigation strategies. And they're also discussing insurance coverage. It turns out that we have talked to two different public adjusters, and they have both told us that no, our homeowners insurance will not cover any damage inside the townhouses. Alternatives to litigation are also being discussed by CROA, and the only thing that I can think of will be that they're thinking about throwing another special assessment at us, and I don't believe that we should be penalized twice. We've been paying in good faith for the last 18 years monthly dues to cover these expenses, so we don't want a second special assessment. Again, the board has asked that we do not discuss any of this issue in an open board meeting, but I don't know why. I'd like to have more information about this. And I go back to that 700-page engineering report. I think they should have it available for all of us to look at, and I do believe that we do have access to different strategies and possibly different attorneys for litigation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ida.
Okay. Laura Rousseau, followed by Celia McFadden.
Hi there, Laurel Rousseau, 709 Bloom Street. I'm here to speak, I guess first I have a quick question if I may. It's kind of an unusual one. I watched a lot of the candidate forums, and I know one of the first questions that every candidate is asked is, have you read the documents? Have you read the CROA documents? My question actually goes back to the heart of celebration and what the intention for the town was. So my question to the entire board is, have you read the celebration planned use development document? So if you can just run down and say yes or no, that would be great.
I have read it.
You have read it. Wonderful.
I have not.
Okay. Yes? No? Is that a problem?
Yeah, it's not appropriate.
Susan?
It's not.
Really?
You can ask the question. Keep going.
Okay.
Please.
I was just trying to understand if you already understood the original intention with regard to traffic, density, streets, roads, parking, all of those things as you move into considering the 4th of July. And a cooperative effort with Lexington when the PUD really does outline the original intention, why we're struggling so much when events are advertised and we're bringing in 300,000 people or 20 or 100 or whatever it is. And I just want to share some of the language from the PUD, because often I think we talk around the issues. I was at Sonoa yesterday with regard to on-street truck loading and unloading, and that's equally an issue. So it was just really to gauge sort of, do you understand that we're in conflict every time we throw these events that are not community events, that are not intended primarily for the residents. I'm going to give you quickly the opening, the PUD intent. The intent of celebration planned use development is to provide a planned mixed-use community that combines modern, innovative, and environmental sensitivity within a fabric reminiscent of traditional neighborhoods found in notable towns throughout the United States. In celebration, residents and visitors experience an unparalleled mix of energy and amenities. That's kind of a general one that we all understand. The PUD goes on, however, to speak about parking and street narrowness of width, if you will, more than 99 times in this document. And so when we talk about special events and can we make a road one way, can we redirect traffic, all of these questions, I would just encourage the board before you sort of move forward in a cooperative effort consideration to go back and read why most everything you're going to look at is going to be, you know, an issue. So 30 seconds, you'll give me the thing, but I did ask, Jesse Opaka has offered me his time as well, so. Okay, so I'm going to move on very quickly. The objectives of celebration are to promote a reduction in the number and length of automobile trips and consequently traffic congestion within celebration, increase pedestrian travel to increase citizen security, interaction, neighborliness, and sense of community bonding. Traveled portions of the streets that are sized for their purpose within the streetscape described above, and an environment in which the needs of everyday life can be achieved with less reliance on the private automobile by providing a network of alternative modes of transportation. So you get the gist of it. I'm going to just jump ahead and do one final comment, if I may, on town center in particular, as that is ground zero for special events in town. Obviously, all the other neighborhoods feel the impacts of the traffic. I'm not saying that, but town center, we're in track 11. We have a lot of specific language to us. Town center will cater primarily to community residents. Right there. Why are we accepting money? Why are we promoting outside of this town and asking hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands, depending on the event, you know, to come into our town? But we'll also serve guests from the towns, we'll also serve guests, obviously we acknowledge that. The town center will include various uses, maximum self-sufficiency, and minimize the need for traveling outside of celebration. It is anticipated that these uses may include banks, boutiques, et cetera, nothing, you know, new to us to understand what is downtown. Consistent with Celebration's goal of encouraging non-vehicular transportation, traditional vehicular parking provisions will be decreased from the typical standard. My very last thing, jumping ahead, specifically in tract 11, we go on to talk about it's dedicated to collective social activity, education, and recreation in a traditional commercial and residential environment which nurtures a unified sense of community. I would argue that the Lexington events, when we advertise outside, when we ask the entire world to come join us, that was not the original intent. And last but not least, under tract 11, under mixed uses, permitted uses for mixed use in our downtown, neighborhood commercial, defined as small-scale office or retail uses that support nearby development and are not designed to attract patrons from outside the community. I just encourage you, as you look at ways to spend the money that we pay in our dues, to consider the original intent of the town respectfully as it impacts all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're skipping Celia McFadden. Jesse,
wait, hold on.
She yielded her time.
Okay.
Jesse O'Falca. Okay, that's yielded. Two more, then John Bisignat, I'm sorry.
You can just say Biz.
Biz, John Biz. John Bisig, it's hard to read, sorry. Say it?
Bizignano.
Bizignano, thank you very much.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is John Bizignano, 1106 Rush Court. And I am here to represent Scout Troop 125 within the community. And I've been lately working on some ideas for an Eagle project. And I had a discussion with Mr. Waring last week about what I could do to potentially benefit the community and bring the community closer together, because I really enjoy living in Celebration and being part of our community, and I enjoy how close we are as well and all the activities within it. And we discussed what would be best that would actually benefit and bring us together, and he recommended that I look into the first item on the agenda, which is the discussion of the time capsule, because it's unique, unlike anything that has ever been done before within this community for an Eagle project especially. And it would help to bring the community together, which is what an Eagle project is essentially supposed to do. And it would be a good part of the town's history and a good way to bring the community together. And I just needed some approval on that, and I was wondering what you guys would think of that.
I also want to point out that John has a requirement for the Eagle Scouts to come and stand in front of you all, and he picked a great meeting tonight to do that.
You have a lot of people here. Good job.
Yeah. If we can, why don't we follow through on your comments when we go to action item number 1?
Yeah, action item number 1, I know Mr. Moun's going to be presenting on that, and maybe you can be part of that discussion. I don't know if that's part of it.
All right.
Thank you for your courage and your smooth delivery.
All right.
Are you representing yourself or your whole troop?
Both.
Okay, good.
All right.
You did an excellent job. Thank you.
Can I? John, off the microphone, how far are you now on your step to Eagle? How many merit badges?
How many merit badges? Got a few more, but I currently only need a project and a few more merit badges, and I'm going to complete 2 by going to this very meeting and presenting them.
Whoa! Oh, good. And if we decide anything, I think the board would gladly sign. So thank you.
Tell him you certainly earned it tonight.
Yeah, you deserve multiple signatures.
You should have been here at 5 o'clock.
Thank you, John. And our last is Debbie Wisniewski.
I have it.
Okay.
Is there anything else you want to say? Not anything? Okay.
Okay, so that was
Anybody else?
owner's comment period. We have one remaining.
Celia wanted to talk. Come on up, Celia.
Okay.
No? You can have Debbie's time.
So we have one last, and then we're moving.
Celia McFadden, 1007 Celebration Avenue. I really wasn't going to say anything tonight for change, but today in town, while at Lakeside, bathrooms look really nice, by the way, thank you. They look nice. But it's a big concern because I was parked along the parking spots where the basketball courts are. And it was approximately 2:30. In fact, I called Town Hall twice and spoke to, I think, a girl named Robin to see if they could send someone down there. Who's responsible for monitoring the basketball courts down by Lakeside? Is it a CROA amenity? Because it says CROA ID is needed to play here on the sign.
Yeah, the parking is CROA.
It's a park monitor, the monitor.
The parking is CROA and the basketball courts are CROA.
All right, so I'm like pulling out of the spot, and this guy's chasing me, and they had their cell phones on my car. They weren't doing anything wrong, but the amount of people that were there, and I told the girl, clear out. I says, it's a rough crowd down there, very rough. I mean, they weren't kids. It was just before school dismissal. They were not kids. They were like 4 cars lined up. They're blasting the music. I didn't hear any foul language, but it was a rough crowd. When you go to the pool, there's the people that come and say, do you have your CROA ID? You can't get into the park now because the gate is fixed. Who's monitoring that? Why can't someone go there every hour and say, where's your ID? Like they go to the pools. It was scary because the kids were getting out of school, and I'm saying, I'm afraid to leave that area because the people that were there it was a rough crowd.
So what time did you say that?
A little after it was about 2:25. I spoke to Robin. I called twice.
Okay. No,
and she put me through the parks. It was an answering machine, and I called back. I said, I don't want to speak to an answering machine. I think somebody needs to go down there now and see what and who is hanging out down there.
I will make sure that tomorrow somebody's down there around that time frame just
Well,
to check that out. But there is a park monitor, and there is a system that they go to. I don't want to announce it so that everybody in the community knows where they're going to be and when they're going to be there. But
But these clearly were not residents from Celebration. I'm sorry. They were not residents.
So we'll have management follow up, and we'll also look at how to be more proactive and more, and it may mean more park monitors. And there's also the option of the sheriff's office.
Well, I hate to call the sheriff, but you know, there's been times where I've been down there, and you see little 10-year-olds sitting there bouncing the ball on the curb because they can't play in the
Yeah.
facility that
Yes.
they're a
Some things may
resident
be,
in.
some things may be within sheriff's jurisdiction, some may just be
Well,
our park monitors.
the monitors definitely are not security.
They're not
just
security.
monitor, and then we
That's right.
utilize the Osceola County Sheriff's
Yeah,
Department.
can you send off that agenda or that list of times that they often go, or whatever process there is, just to the board?
To the
So that we
board,
can-
yeah, that would be wonderful.
And then that's something we can look
And
at in
does it-
terms of increasing numbers of park monitors. And
Eventually, it's going to get out
Yeah.
where they're going to say,
Something
hey,
we'll-
they're checking ID. If we don't have ID, we're going to get thrown out.
And does it include Long Meadow Park? Because I've never seen one in
So,
22 years.
let's look at that.
Okay,
Thank
and
you.
I just have one more thing to say. I want to thank Debbie for all her time that she's given us in the 4 years that she's been on the, four
Thank you
years?
for- yeah.
And we're going to miss you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you for all the owner comments. Moving to verify, Steve, would you verify the meeting's been properly noticed?
Yes, it has.
And verify the quorum?
Yes, you do.
Thank you. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So now formally calling the meeting to order. Motion to adopt the agenda.
Motion to adopt?
Oh, that was from Vaughn. And
Oh.
Debbie, will you second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Approval of minutes. We have the CROA workshop from 1/7/19 and the CROA board meeting from 1/23/19. Motion to approve those.
So moved.
Thank you, Brian.
I'll second.
Second from Kevin. I know I had a couple of typos. I assume that all of those were corrected? A couple of wording things? You're smiling.
Yes, and Susan.
Just to verify, you may have responded to my email in the
We
last
did.
hour.
Yes.
But I'm,
It was before the 5 o'clock meeting. We did.
yeah, okay. Any other corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes, so the minutes are approved as modified. Committee reports, ARC.
Michael's back here.
Michael is coming.
Michael is coming to the stand.
That's going to be followed by Recreation.
I don't know how to follow up what we've just witnessed, but I'll just stick with the ARC report. Michael Valaket, for the record, Chairman of the Architectural Review Committee. We had 97 applications in January, 92 were approved and 5 were not. Top requests in January were, as always, security devices are the number one with 21, painting the exteriors 11, landscaping and design and planning 9. ARC wants to remind everyone that exterior changes must be submitted to the ARC for formal review. That includes landscaping. The front desk of Town Hall has hard copies of all applications, and you can also get them on the town website. If residents have any questions regarding applications and the process need assistance in the process, great staff here to assist. Just come into Town Hall and call, and they will help you out. And a reminder, we're still looking for a 5th member of the Architectural Review Committee. We've lost one that got shipped off to Japan, if you recall, for work. And so we do need one more, so we have an odd number. Other than that, do you have any questions for the ARC while I'm here? That's why I'm here.
Questions for
Anybody?
ARC? I think we've done a lot of questions over the last year.
Yes, we.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Followed by Recreation.
You're leaving again. He does this every meeting.
Oh, he leaves.
Bye, Michael.
Bye, Michael.
Bye, Michael.
Smart man.
Party the
Good evening, Joseph Lenahan, member of the Parks and Recreation Committee. We've had 2 meetings since the last board meeting. One was a special workshop specifically to work on current challenges and strategies for how the main athletic fields that are coming online over the next few months will be managed, and then a regular general meeting on 2/25. At the workshop, things that we're discussing are management of the field and as facilities. There are several recommendations that the Parks and Rec Committee had come up with, and that will be presented as a full presentation to the board with line items for approval at a later meeting. The committee discussed and made general lists of equipment that would also be needed, and at the next meeting that we have, which will be on March 11th, as another workshop, we'll discuss those costs to have other setups and startups that might be necessary that we will again present to CROA at a later date. The next general meeting will be March 25th, and that will be at 3 o'clock here at the 5-1 building. During the last meeting, we had a general committee recommendation for a new adult softball group that will be started up. They were approved for both adult men and women of all ages and abilities, and you can contact CROA Parks and Recreation for more information on who to contact for that information.
Where are they going to play at?
This field here?
They'll be at these fields here. So
Thank you.
again, all that scheduling will be handled through the management and booking time.
Is that Celebration residents only?
There's through the recreation program model, there's an allotment for residents to get first crack at registration and a lower fee.
And this will be operated by CROA staff?
No, this is a club situation.
But they will be operating under the rules and regulations of the recreation program.
The presentation that was made to the committee was, I thought, really, really good. It's a well-thought-out plan to start with 8 weeks, try and build it in to generate some opportunities for participation among different skill levels, and to incorporate celebration residents, but also there's no reason a non-resident couldn't play, but there's a higher fee as we have in the other activities. I think it's another example of what the Recreation Committee has been doing, which is to standardize our programs, standardize our fees, standardize the contracts and agreements that we have. I think they're doing a fabulous job, so thanks.
Oh, sure.
So
Thank
this will
you.
be similar to the soccer league?
Yep. Just adult, it's a little bit simpler for the adult programming than it is for youth.
Correct. Most of the programs that we have are through a third party, whether they be community-based or a third party coming in as a vendor to run the program. So again, in your Parks and Recreation development and the next strategy meetings that you have, that's an important thing to take in mind as well when we're talking about amenities and how those amenities are used, how those particular clubs are structured. And that is actually part of our current Parks and Rec Committee paperwork and information that is available to you. The foundation, or the Celebration Foundation Home Holiday Tour also puts in for information every year, and that was currently approved for use of facilities for here at Town Hall in December of this year. And other than that, at this time, we're still focused on getting the Celebration athletic fields online under recommendations and management to get those going when they are fully available to be open to all the different community areas and leagues that we have set up. So thank you, Jackson, for attending the meeting on Monday, and any other questions from the board at this time?
We'll hear more about what he just said in your report. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Any questions for Joseph? Thank you, Jackson.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have events. So Dory.
Had help tonight. And I didn't want to thank Joe, because he really does play an integral part in on the committee, because he knows a lot about soccer and a lot about the town. He's been here for a long time. He does a great job, and good job. Okay, so February for the events has been a really busy month. I do want to address the gentleman that spoke earlier about the Great Lawn event with the Nova era, the food trucks, and I was there. I agree with you. Sometimes it's a fine line when we have family events of children, running and playing and having a good time, and also kind of being disruptive. We did discuss it. We have discussed it. We are going to make some changes going forward. So I just wanted to thank you for, we appreciate constructive criticism, and we will try to make it better. And please feel free anytime to reach out to the staff, myself, or anybody on the committee to make it better and more enjoyable for everybody. It was a great event. We had many attendees requesting that we invite the group back and for a repeat performance in the future. We had a sold-out father-daughter dance, and it took residents under the sea in a visually stunning display. And I want a special thanks to the Special Events Committee for their creative vision and helping hands for that event. Posh Poots had canines wagging their tails on a picture-perfect day this past Saturday as attendees observed and took in demonstrations by the sheriff's canines, shop vendor tents, and listened to dog expert trainers. And we had over 30 dogs and homeowners enter the dog costume contest. And everyone enjoyed the live music, and some lucky rescue pups did go home with families, and we're always excited to see that happen. Looking ahead, we have the porch and yard sale, which takes place March 2nd from 8 to 2. Everyone is reminded to use caution and give yourself some extra time and exhibit patience when traveling throughout the community on that day. Residents are also invited to come out and experience celebration nights here, as the CROA annual event will take place on March 6th. Refreshments will be served at 6 and followed by the meeting at 6:30. The March food truck will be held on Friday, March 8th. Everyone is invited to grab their capes and join their fellow supers as we present The Incredibles 2 on the Great Lawn. Showtime is at 6:45. On March 20th, the Spring Fling event will be on the Great Lawn, and please come and join your neighbors there for a sing-along at an awesome dueling pianos presentation. Again, Great Lawn, 6:30 to 8:30. The next Kids Night Out for residents is for the 6 to 12-year-olds, and we will have attendees experiencing what it is like to train like an astronaut, all without leaving Earth's gravitational belt. The trip to the outer reaches of the galaxy will be on Friday, April 5th from 6 to 9 at Heritage Hall. And as previously communicated, we, due to lower attendance, we will not be having the egg coloring, but the great celebration egg hunt will still occur on Saturday, April 20th at Spring Park. And you can check out the website, the start times for each specific group. And going forward, we just want you to mark your calendars and save the date for Founders Day 2019. Founders Day will be Friday, November 15th and Saturday, November 16th this year. And stay tuned for announcements on what promises to be a very exciting Friday evening concert. A special thanks to Debbie, who has been our liaison, who will be leaving, and we'll miss you greatly, and we enjoyed having you. Thank you very much. And Kevin, we really hope you stay on board. You have been awesome. So, and maybe we'll get one more newbie on the committee, but we really appreciate all your input and over the years, and just want to thank you all. And like I said before, if you have an event that you would like to see, if there's something that we can do that you've done in a neighborhood in somewhere else in another state, let us know. And also, we appreciate any comments that we can make the events better for everybody. Thank you. Any comments, questions?
Any questions, comments for Tori? Okay, moving on. Moving on to
report.
No, I welcome Maureen's here tonight. Yay! She's also
the
wonderful.
The crossover time to Dog Park.
She does an awesome job as well. Good job.
Hi, I'm Maureen Stellag. I'm chairperson for the Dog Park Committee. We had a table at the Posh Pooch event last weekend. We were selling event T-shirts and Celebration Unleashed hats. We still have inventory that can be sold at other events throughout this year, and also here available at Town Hall. We have some people modeling in the audience tonight. Key learning from that is that residents actually like merchandise with the Dog Park logo on it. At our committee meeting last week, we also discussed additional events that we can engage the community and can also serve as fundraisers for improvements and amenities at the park. We have 2 proposals that we will be submitting to the board shortly. New signs were hung at the park at the beginning of the year, including posting park rules at the entrance gates and signs inside the park to remind residents to pick up after their dogs. Despite the signs, dog waste is continuing to be left in the park. It's a problem, and it is putting other dogs at risk for disease. So in addition to the signs that we've posted, we also had one article in the Celebration magazine in January about cleaning up after dogs. We have another one in the March issue that is out today, I see, also about cleaning up after dogs. We think that our next step may be to conduct random inspections of the camera feed so that we can identify the residents and dogs in violation and take appropriate action.
We have found that when we find people, it works.
I think that might work because personally I'm tired of cleaning up after other dogs besides my own. We would also like to request that no overnight parking signs be hung at the park. We've had 2 different people that are using the parking area outside the dog park to live in their cars. Both have been reported to the police, although one is continuing to reside in his car living behind the library. For the safety of residents, particularly those that visit the park early in the morning, we request signs to discourage people from making this their home. Also, with the opening of the new fields pending, the new athletic fields, and with the people and construction crews that already work in that area along the access road, there are cars that speed down there on a regular basis. We request that you consider putting in speed bumps to slow people down and keep it safe for people and their pets. And last, we are again requesting that you approve funds to purchase and install lights in the park. Many residents want to utilize the dog park in the early morning or after work in the evening, and the lack of lights limits the utilization of the dog park. Any questions?
Todd, where are they going to actually put the gate that locks off that road? Where's that going to go in? We're putting a gate in, right?
Are you talking about at the athletic field complex?
At the athletic field.
It's going to be.
Is it going to be this side of the dog park or past the dog park?
No, it'll be right at the, right before the start of the parking lot on the athletic field complex. And I can show you when I do the.
Before, so it'll include the dog park?
No, it'll be all the way down by the athletic field complex.
Past the CDD building.
Correct.
As regards to
racing to that gate.
And as regards to lights, I thought you and Dory were going to give us something a while back on what even options were and stuff like that.
That we were going to give options on lights, which I believe we have.
And Todd's.
Yes.
I actually think that's in your court.
It's in ours, and Todd's working with TCC to get approval on it. And I think there's been a couple different options that have been floated with them.
So that's forthcoming, yeah.
Maureen, how did you do with sales at the Posh Pooch with merchandise?
We were just over $1,500.
Where were you
about
expecting?
$1,600. We'd like to be around 2,000. So, but like we said, the Posh Pooch T-shirts say 2019 on them. We can certainly sell them at other events this year. The Celebration Unleashed hats that we have left can be sold at any time. So I do think we'll be able to close that out.
That was your profit, or that was your total that you got?
That's the total that we sold. Now, right now, our profit is not a profit, but will be soon. So,
Maureen, could you do us a favor on the event and in future events, because hopefully you'll stay on this a long time. David, we'd asked for this a long time ago. Just do kind of like a one sheet. You know, we printed X T-shirts, we did X doggy bags and ribbon, whatever, all the supplies, kind of what you spent roughly, just so we can build on it, because it was fabulous. And thank you to the staff for everything as well.
Yes, thank you.
So thank you for your report and for all that you do. I was wearing that shirt today, and I got a few looks. It's like, no, I'm not wearing it now.
Well, why did you not keep it on?
It might be.
Looks and people asking where they could get one, David?
That's not what they were asking. They were just, anyway. So we're coming up on the 2-year mark?
Of the dog park?
For the dog park, yeah.
In March.
Are we having a party?
Is there a party?
We're not.
Okay.
There was no budget set aside for it, and we prefer not to use our dog park funds in case we can put that towards lights. So.
Good answer.
Could there be a BYO party?
Could we just?
There could, as long as you keep the food outside of the park, because one of the rules is no park allowed, and no food allowed in the park.
Anyway, thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Any other questions? Good.
Anything else from the board? Artisan Park, any update? I know there's a couple board items, okay. Liaison report, CDD?
We still have covenants.
I'm sorry?
Covenants.
Covenants.
Oh, okay. Didn't see it on the printed agenda.
Steve, do you have a report?
There was an updated
Go ahead.
agenda, but that's okay. He's here.
Sorry, Steve.
No, it's okay. Just told to wear the shirt. Okay, wearing the shirt. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Stephen Fromfelder, I'm the chairman for the Covenants Committee. In January, 570 inspection and re-inspections were conducted on single-family and service area homes. 53 resale and follow-up inspections were also conducted. 114 new and completed ARC projects were also reviewed by the Standards Committee, our inspectors. 114 emails were also sent for minor items, and 184 letters were sent for major items or multiple minor ones. The Covenants Committee did not meet in the months of December and January. We had our first hearing for this year of 2019 last Thursday on February the 21st. As a constant reminder, at every report, the inspectors continue to drive through the community, conducting routine inspections approximately every 6 weeks. They have reference materials in the NEBs with them to assist homeowners. Actually, residents. When I say homeowners, we also need to expand that out to folks that are renters, homeowners, everybody that is here. The Community Standards team also is ready to work with you here at Town Hall, so if you get a notice, we encourage you to contact them by email, by phone, or in person. They are here to help you. And they can assist you with timelines, applications, and maintenance plans if there are any issues that the inspectors have found with your particular residents. Thank you, everyone, for all their hard work for keeping Celebration looking beautiful. Subject to your questions, that's all I have for my report.
Questions from the board? 2 comments. Several of us were at your last covenants meeting that had many cases, and that what I wanted to say is how much I, and I'm sure other board members, appreciate the thoroughness that you treat these cases with. So thank you for all your hard effort on that. Second, I also appreciate the briefing you all did at a workshop a month ago, 2 months ago?
7 January, yes, sir.
Is it January? Okay. So again, thank you for that briefing. It's very helpful, and I know that Gary is the primary or only author of an article that appeared in the Celebration News in February. Anyway, but so thank you all for your continued good work in maintaining the standards and working with staff.
And we also have we will continue to, with staff, propose more articles to be placed in the
more articles and more improvements to help with the continue to improve the process. Yes. So thank you. Anything else? Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on to liaison report. Jack, any report?
No, I think Steve's got an update regarding.
Okay.
We took CGD.
Yeah, CGD. I'm sorry.
No.
Okay. Steve, management. I'm sorry. Financial review. Brian.
Okay. In the interest of time, I will keep this pretty quick. We had a budget for the year of $6,025,000 in revenues. We came out at $6,006,000, so came out right on budget. Did very well. Pretty much everything was on budget except for operating expense funds. We're about $156,000 in the hole. We had the Davie invoice situation, which goes back to the past and disputes over work, what was done, what was not done. We booked all expenses, we put up contingent liabilities. That number may go down in the future, but from an audit perspective, we have invoices, we have an expense. We're not paying it, but you got to let the process play out. So that really drives the difference there. If you look at cash, reserve funds, cash and investments, we ended the year with $4.7 million of reserve funds, which I'll talk about in a second, $5.9 million overall of cash. You've heard me say it for several months in a row now. We're strong financially. We're still strong financially. If you go to the reserve fund page, restricted replacements, I'll talk about a little bit more on the next sheet, but that is the parks we own, the buildings we own, roofs we got to replace, and all that type of stuff. We got $1,044,000 of cash to support all those projects, and I'll talk about that more in a second. Capital improvement. We made the decision this year to take the surplus away because surplus really, these were all fungible, and we said there's no value in having that there. Contingency, we said we cap at 500, we've got it 471. That would be a deductible for a hurricane coming through, something there. It gives us a really nice pot of cash for an emergency. If you look at the capital improvement of the $3.2 million, Steve will talk about it in a minute, but right now we're looking at the project on the athletic field being much closer to $4.25 million. And we've spent $1.5 million through December 31st, which is already reflected as a reduction of cash here. So if you take the $4.2 million, subtract 2.1 that we're going to get, there's about, that leaves $2.1 million that we would have spent. We've spent $1.5 million. So there'd only be about $600,000 going out of here. So we end this with about $2.5 million worth of cash. We've got the parks and facilities plan going, but we're certainly going to be in a good enough position that we can think about projects going forward. We're not going to be in a position where we just got to clamp down on everything, but instead we make
what'll happen, and I think it's on the agenda later, when, or Steve will talk about it, when we actually get it done, we'll look at the number of projects, we'll make decisions as a board and stuff like that, planning into the future. That could be pickleball, that could be the croquet courts we heard about before, that could be a community center, that could be a performing arts center. Those decisions are all going to be discussed about many times amongst this board and these meetings and stuff like that, but we're starting in good position for that. And the last thing, if I go to the third sheet here, we haven't talked about this for a little while, but it is an important sheet. So we've got all these service areas here. We've got Savannah Square, Academy Row, all the way through them. And what we show you is for at 12/31/18 what their income was or their loss. You might say, well, how can they have a loss? Well, they may have went in and made a major fix to a roof or something where they didn't have reserve funds. So having a loss is not a bad thing per se. It just happens. Here's their net worth. Here's the operating cash they have. Here's the reserve cash they have. And as a refresher, you have like your cash for expenses and stuff like that. Reserve cash, like I talked about before with us, we have $1,044,000. We do an engineering study every 3 years. The last one was done in 2016. That reserve study for CROA, as an example, said we need to have $383,000 of cash at year end. We've got $1,044,000. So we've got an excess, which is actually a good thing because we've got the athletic complex fields and all this stuff coming on. We're going to do a new engineering study this year. It's going to, when you put all these things in place, create a spike where we need more cash reserves. So that's a good thing. If you live in one of these service areas, it gives you a good feeling how much cash is there versus how much you probably need and how much do you have for operating things. So I don't spend a lot of time on it in these meetings, but that is an important sheet, and I always want you guys to remember that. And any questions from the board? Thank you.
Always very helpful and succinct. Makes it understandable. Management report. See?
I'll jump right into the athletic complex then. This picture is a couple weeks old. We actually have some new ones coming within the next week. But just to get your bearings of where you are, this is the library down here, CDD building. It's a little pixelated, but this is that Lot D that was former golf course property. It's all been cleared now and graded. The building, the concession building, is starting to go up. The block is coming up. We have a lot of landscaping already in along the side here. Trees are going in, a lot of sods going in down here. There are the lights, the light poles are up now. And then this synthetic field, from this picture, they were putting the infill down, so that's what you see these lines. That's not what it's going to look like when it's done. It's actually done now. It's been signed off on. So the synthetic turf field is completed. There's a pavilion that has been constructed that's about a quarter of the way done. So the project's moving along. There is a little bit of a slowdown though with these fields here, and you're going to see an action item tonight. This is two different athletic fields, but the way that the design was written by the landscape engineer, he had it's Bermuda 419 is the typical surface that's used for actual recreational play, and then Celebration Bermuda mixed together, but the Celebration just in between the fields. And they asked about building a barrier, and it just didn't make sense to have two different types of blends of Bermuda grass. So we've had a change order in the agenda tonight to just make this all the 419 Bermuda, and then the Celebration Bermuda will be down here on this end. So we will have a little bit more open green space down here that will be able to be utilized for running around, throwing a frisbee, those types of things. It looked like the project was going to be early April. We're probably about a 2 to 3 or 4 week delay on that. So we're really pushing to try and get it end of April, early May, but it all is going to be determined on that side.
But actually, Steve, that gets us closer to the opening of the concession bathroom.
Correct,
right?
yeah, and the bathrooms are in June, the first part of June, so it does push us a lot closer to that.
And I do know the Recreation Committee has started the scheduling process of, based on prior years and usage for the different groups, starting with an early May start. So, you know.
Can I point something out on this?
Please. Yeah. Oh.
This right along here is the 11th hole of the golf course.
Yeah.
If anybody's walking through here and sees a golf ball with a green V on it, give me a call.
You asked about a gate also. The gate would be closer to right about here. In that area.
The gate.
Okay. That'll be right around this area.
And so the road will end and the parking will end before the concession stand?
The road will end at the parking lot. So about this area, you'll go into the parking lot and the road will end. There will be a path that is going to be built for a fire truck to be able to drive down if needed. So that'll go all the way and extend all the way down to here and be a roundabout turnaround.
And that exists now?
That's in
That's
now.
a
Most of the
concrete
way,
road?
it stops about right here. They do have to finish it, but yeah, that will be done shortly.
So for those who have not visited, which is, because it's a construction site, we
Please
can't.
don't visit.
We can't visit.
Right.
But just, as you can see from, what was that, the 11th hole?
Yes.
From the 11th hole, or when you get to walk it.
Or come to the annual meeting next week.
Or come to the annual meeting.
You'll get better
Steve,
pictures.
It is a large facility. This is not a small field or set of fields. This is a large facility.
And this is going to be fenced in. Could you show people where the fence is going to be around so they have an idea?
There's an existing fence that's a DOT fence all the way through here, but the fence will run all the way around here, and then it'll run around this way somewhat to where it will be gated off along the road. So the entire property will be fenced.
So this is not going to be open to just anybody can go in there and destroy the thing or play the thing or do whatever. It's actually going to be controlled, fenced, and carefully rented and cared for.
Steve, before this comes up on the porch, back, front, whatever, the lights are up,
Yes.
and I'm not a big sport. I didn't realize they'd be so tall.
Yeah,
How
they're,
tall?
They're 80 feet in
80
the air.
feet. So
But
if you live in like Brian's house,
Yep.
and you look that way, they're big. Have you seen them from your house? Do you see them from your house?
Not really, because they
If you
shut
look
them
further
down.
What time are those going to be turned off normally?
I believe 10 o'clock is the time that it will be recommended for the ending. And but I will tell you, you all bought the best state-of-the-art LED lighting that you will see no bleed over outside of those fields. They will be directed completely onto those fields.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Yeah, that's part of, that was part of the long-term discussion years ago.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions with the athletic complex?
Thank you for the update.
Sure. The next item I want to quickly touch on, and this is a CROA item, but I think it's important for Celebration residents to know this. The solar building that was under tarps on Celebration Boulevard and Wolf Drive, that has been sold, and there's a new owner as of February 8th. Construction has already begun. The tarps are coming down. So the removal of the tarps, the rebuilding of the balconies will take place. It's going to have a new name, a new image, and a new address, so it'll be rebranded completely. The buyer's working with the Celebration Company to finalize the new color schemes and then apply to CROA for any changes before the painting begins on the building. They're looking at around a 9-month time frame for construction to be completed and to start bringing new residents into that facility. So there is some progress moving forward with that.
Just to be clear, we are able to assess the recreation fees once a certificate of occupancy is issued for the building.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So it's not a by apartment rental date. It is the whole building gets a CO, and at that point we assess the fees. Am I correct in that understanding?
That is what I believe, but I can't interpret those documents, so I just have to verify and make sure. But I believe that it says once the CO is completed that we get the apartment rec fee. I just have to verify whether it's prorated based on the date or if it's for the entire year, and I'll do that.
When they originally came online, they would give us a CO date for each building because there are several buildings, and we'd bill them for the by building. So if there's 300 units and there's 30 per building and there's 10 buildings, then the first 30 rec fees will be billed in the month that that CO is completed.
And in our budgeting, correct me, Brian, currently the budgets are built assuming no rec fees because we did not know when they would be occupied. So things will look, we budgeted conservatively.
It'll help for 2020.
Will we plan for 20?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if it takes 9 months and it's
so
March
you're dealing
1, I mean, realistically.
You're dealing with, okay. So it's helpful.
Yeah. Okay, the next item I have is the Parks and Facilities Master Plan update. Survey has been tweaked. It took a little bit longer than we originally anticipated, but it should go out within the next couple weeks. So that will give us an end time for the master plan update around May or June, end of May, early June for this. We do want to make sure that residents understand if you receive a postcard and a letter that's going to clearly describe that you've been randomly selected for the statistically valid survey, please make sure you do that. There'll be a code for you to fill in. Please make sure you fill that out. Now, you'll have an opportunity to do another one because we'll do the email, and it's going to be the same questions. So if you got selected for statistically valid, you can do it twice. And it's not going to affect the overall because it's a multi-pronged process where each one of these different pools of survey data will be fed up to the overall master plan. So look within the next 2 weeks for your postcard with the statistically valid survey, and then you'll get an email. The entire community will get an email about a week following that, encouraging everybody to fill out the survey. And it is important. We want to get everybody's feedback on what the needs are of the community for facilities and parks. So are there any questions on the master plan?
It's exciting.
The survey, you want to talk about that?
He just said we're just doing final tweaking.
Final tweaking.
So it's in the final tweaking stage.
Yes.
Are we sending it out to the board? Or, I mean, I won't be here, but are you guys going to look at it again?
David has, and we had a phone call with the
Brian,
master
you look
planning
at it
firm,
again?
and I think we've got it to where it meets the needs of all the comments of the board.
Yeah, I think the comments, the board has already seen the earlier draft, and it's being final tweaked.
Thank you. I know, David, that was a lot of work.
Yeah, David came in and did put in some time to help us with that, so yes, thank you for that.
Thank you.
It's that close to being done.
Yes, right. The next item that I have then is just a reminder of the CROA board elections in the annual meeting. You have until next Tuesday at 5:30 to vote, so make sure you vote. Only vote once, please, though, but please get in your vote. Next Wednesday is the reception starting at 6 o'clock, and then the annual meeting starting at 6:30. And I think you'll be pleased with the format. I know that our board members, Debbie and Kevin, have worked hard to work with management on the setup of this, so we look forward to having that meeting next Wednesday. And there are 3 seats open and 5 people running for those 3 positions, so make sure you get out and vote. Any questions on that? Okay. I would like to...
I don't know where thank you for helping with that one issue with volunteers. Thanks.
I would like to ask Todd to come up now. We do have, he needs to address the board about a pool concern that we identified just today. I mean, this is as of this afternoon, so.
Sorry to take up all your time
He
here.
wanted airtime tonight.
Yeah. Everybody else got airtime. Jump right in here. As you know, the Lakeside Swimming Pool underwent refinishing of the pool shell, new tile, and some other improvements around the pool. When the pool was refilled about 3 weeks ago, we discovered a water leak, not caused by the pool shell or pool refinishing. So we called several leak detection companies out, involving Classic Marshsite, who was our pool contractor. One leak detection company had a third week in March time frame for us. We were lucky enough to get a company called Red Rhino out. They were here last week and just yesterday. They finalized their results. They dove the pool. They did some sonar in the pool, and they found what they appeared to have is a pipe under the pool that has broken. Don't know the reason, don't know the cause. We won't know that until work is done to correct the issue. So right now the pool is non-operational. It's being filtered through accessory pumps that we have on site. We have Classic Marshsite that is planning on coming in Monday to dig alongside the pool. Luckily it's where we have pavers, so it won't affect the majority of the pool deck. They will dig down, tunnel under the pool, and make a repair. The alternative is to cut right through the pool after you drain it. We don't want to do that, especially with the new finish. So once they get underneath there, we'll be able to discover why it broke. It could be the age of the pipe, 22-year-old pool. Who knows? But we'll find out.
And how cheap is this?
Cheap is not a, that's a great word to use, but I don't think it's a fair word. I was hoping to have a price from Classic Marshsite today. They haven't done so. It'll probably be in the morning. I estimated probably around 5,000. Susan says go 10.
So I was thinking a lot worse. So
no, it's not going to be a huge number, but don't hold me to the $5,000. But I'll be there monitoring it the whole time. But it is a little invasive to do. Like I said, they have to dig down, which means they have to go 5 to 6 feet down. Then you have to have trench hazard. They have to do dewatering so they don't collapse their trench. So it is quite an undertaking, but they plan to be,
So let me
expeditious about it.
let me ask a dumb question. My wife would never let me ask this at home, but I do nothing mechanical. But if we're going to be underneath there, should we also look and make sure that this isn't the only pipe that looks like it's going to break in 3 days?
Well, no, you can't really go underneath the whole pool. You have to go in a very confined space. The sonar has identified it in the shallow end on the parking lot side of the pool. So they'll only go to that area. However, before they fill the trench back in, I will have Red Rhino back out to do another leak detection on it, run their sonar to confirm that we do have the leak addressed.
But the sonar acts as if you were underneath the pool looking, right? You're just
It
looking
does.
at it
What they did was they tested every hole in the pool, the lights, the returns, the supplies. What we have is a 6-inch pipe that supplies all the flow returns. What's happened is one of them is broke, disconnected, whatever it may be, and it's pumping water out underneath the pool, up along the sides. So that's why we can't run the pool. It would empty the pool. We don't want to do that.
How long was the pool empty for when they were working on it?
Pool was empty probably 2.5, 3 weeks.
Long time.
Yeah, but that's the first thing that pops into one's mind is, did the pool float? I would say the answer is no. There's no indication of that. The pool and the main drains have hydrostatic plugs. They pull those plugs, and with the water pressure underneath the pool, it filled the pool almost halfway full once they were finished with their dewatering process. So it does balance out. I have video of the water shooting up out of the drain when the hydrostatic plugs were pulled. So I don't think that was the issue, but the amount of water in there does weigh about 50 ton. So anything's possible, but don't believe that was it.
So from a timing standpoint, if it somehow falls underneath the $5,000, I have the threshold to approve that. If the timing works within the March 11th workshop, we can add it to that agenda. If we need to get this approved prior to that, we're going to need to call a special meeting of the board to have it approved.
I think
Or
it
do we,
needs to come
why
out.
don't we do an action item
I was going to
tonight?
say, why don't we do a
something-
motion
Let's do something
with
tonight.
approval up to a
Well, that was
certain
my other
dollar?
option.
Let's do
Yeah, you can
something
give us an
tonight,
up
so-
to.
What's your max? 10,000?
I would say 10 would be a safe number.
So I think we do a motion approving up to $10,000 with Steve and Todd coming back to the president for,
I would make the
I'd second that.
actually, I'd go for higher just in case that comes in.
Make 12?
Well, I hope they're not watching and
How about you
adjusting
do-
the number right now, so.
How about you
We
go
go
to
down
10
to
and come
three.
back if you
Go to
need
three.
all right.
Go to
Let's
10,
do
come
it
back
let's
to
do it
Do
for
it for
$12,000, with approval up to $12,000 with them coming back to the president.
All right, second.
Are you okay with Jack? Any further discussion? So that was a motion by Brian and seconded by Jack. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Does that help?
Thank you very much.
Well,
Yeah,
thank
that's
you
very
for,
helpful.
Thank you, Tom.
thank you
Keep
for
it
being
updated.
right on top of that.
I've had many sleepless nights over that.
We don't do comments at this point. We did that for the first hour.
Would
Thank
you like me
though.
to do my landscape update plan here?
Yes.
Okay, I'll be real quick about it. So I have to put my glasses on for this. Landscaping has been progressing quite well. We're into spring already. Right now, the process is ornamental grasses are being trimmed back, variegated gingers being pruned. It's gotten too tall. Crepe myrtles have been pruned as appropriate. We don't crepe murder them. They're selective pruning. So some you'll see aren't pruned, and that's on purpose, such as along Longmeadow. Leaf removal, they're doing a very good job with leaf removal in the parks, which was a new addition to the Yellowstone's landscape contract last year. Their mowing schedule will increase in March to every week. Right now it's on every other week up until Friday. Baseball fields, they've had a spring prep. They've had insecticides put down, weed control. All the clay's been raked and ready for their spring season. And there was a few plants that were replaced at Yellowstone's cost, and those were from plants that were replaced over the latter part of last year that didn't take, so they replaced those and got our beds back under control. Any questions, comments?
While he's up here, can we ask Todd and Yellowstone to think about the Roundup issue and maybe at a workshop when we can give it appropriate time to read everything? I mean, it would be nice, just a suggestion, it would be nice for you to actually produce something that says, here's Roundup, here's a couple other options, here's cost, what are the realities of it so we can discuss it. I think it's a fair request to at least discuss it and put it on the agenda so people who in the community who are interested can come, and we do it at a workshop so we can give it it shouldn't be done in 3 minutes. It should be given proper chance to be discussed.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. We can come back to you with, any cost changes.
Now, why don't you talk
or
with
the
Yellowstone
risks.
and come back to us and tell us how much, do you need 2 weeks to get ready? Do you need 4 weeks? Come back and tell us when you could be ready to have a proper conversation.
Yeah, very good.
And also some update with how it affects animals as opposed to people, because apparently I don't know if it's apparent, but maybe there's a difference.
Sure. Yeah, we've had some veterinarians weigh in on the subject, and we'll make those available as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Todd.
Well, in the
Anything
interest
else
of
for Todd?
time, if there's no further questions, I think we're
Is there
ready
any
for action
update from
items.
do we need any
Thank you.
update from the county?
It's still on schedule for the March meeting, I believe, March 18th.
So,
For the money?
the funding
It's
from the
it
county?
would be the ordinance and the
Yeah, you want to recap? You want to recap that?
So Brian talked about in the financial update for reserves, the county has worked with us for an agreement to reimburse $2.1 million towards the athletic field complex with some public usage. Our requirements that we have in our recreation program plan with our leagues allowing non-residents is going to meet that public use. And then after our residents and our leagues and our partnerships have booked the fields, there will be availability for tournaments from Experience Kissimmee or from Osceola County, which will give us some cost recovery for the fields, because we will charge facility usage fees and electric fees for the use of the lights. So it should give us some revenue dollars for cost recovery for that. And that meeting, I believe, is March 18th or 19th.
So that actually had three parts. They had to change the county ordinance. We had to work on an agreement, which this board passed a month or two ago.
Correct. And the
I think
ordinance
December.
was because the county couldn't give HOAs dollars, and the county has taken it upon themselves to change that so that they can.
So the county took that on, we did an agreement, and then it's the final authorization of the funding.
Correct. And you all have signed the agreement already. It's just in their court right now for approval. The 19th of March.
19th of March.
It's a Tuesday.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? We'll move to the action items. And we have Jeffrey Mallon. It's this discussion of time capsule. And maybe John will be part of that.
On the screen?
Yeah. Have a picture on the screen. Is this the same as what was provided in the board book? Yeah.
That's fine. I'll put it here.
I'll pull it up on here. So.
Oh, you? I'm okay.
Somebody got your audience.
Yeah, put some out.
Jeffrey, that's the same exact thing you got, right?
Put some out in the audience.
There were two images?
That was one. It's 2 pages.
Yeah.
Oh, it's also on the screen.
Oh, good, you do have it up. Thank you. Thank you all for giving us this opportunity. As you know, my name is Jeffrey Mallon. I live at 1114 Croton Place, and I am also a card-carrying member of the New Urbanism Committee at the Foundation. I actually have several members of the New Urbanism Committee here. If you could all raise your hands if you're part of the committee. Thank you for coming. We appreciate your support. A couple things here. We are proposing a time capsule, but before I talk about that, I also want to mention the 25th anniversary of our town. The foundation has made these little hats, and we've also asked Michael McCann, who is the artist that produced these renderings on the wall, to come back to Celebration and do a wonderful 25th anniversary rendering for us, which will come on March 29th, and that will be available for people to purchase as well as sort of a fundraiser for the foundation. So that's really cool news to sort of kick off our 25th anniversary celebration there. Before you tonight, we have identified, the New Urbanism Committee has identified the idea of creating a time capsule. We spent several meetings and a couple of months looking around for the ideal site for this, and we've also heard there's been a few different time capsules that were produced over time that nobody seems to know where they're at. We're still searching for them and asking old members of town and people who worked here before where they're at, and we can't seem to locate them. So if anybody has any information on that, please bring it forward. But this proposal is to create a time capsule that is up front and center, something that's very obvious. It is the location of the old flagpole at Founders Park. We feel like this is the ideal spot for it. The design is a placeholder. This is not a specific design we're asking for you to approve tonight. So just keep that in mind. This is just a placeholder, and we're going to do a lot more study and research and understanding. A couple of things that this site does is not only does it place a time capsule right up front, but we've come up with the idea, if you could go to the next slide, please. This is sort of it all by itself without the context of the trees. There are 5 corner piers there that would represent the 5 cornerstones. And right now, we don't have any monumental identity of our 5 cornerstones. And we think that this could have a dual purpose, time capsule and a sort of celebration monument representing the 5 cornerstones in celebration. Each cornerstone would be made out of stone or concrete, or we're not sure yet what it's made out of. We think that the sphere at the top is sort of representative of all this idea coming together as one. That perhaps could be the time capsule itself. And the third thing that this does is it restores the logo that is in the ground right there, which is under disrepair right now, and it's kind of worn out, that bronze logo of Celebration. Mm-hmm. This entire thing is totally within the it's not touching the bricks. It's within the concrete area, so all the bricks around it would stay right where it is. The other idea that the committee came up with the time capsule is we don't just put it in one time and open it up in 100 years. We talked about opening it up every 25 years and putting the contents on display for a year and then closing it back up with additional information, sort of a perpetual time capsule that would be opened up every 25 years, perhaps for a long, long time. So that's pretty much the idea, basic idea of it. And tonight we're really just asking for you to say, yeah, that could work in that location. And CROA is willing to consider this location as the spot. The design, we're not so sure about. The cost, we're not so sure about. The foundation and the New Urbanism Committee will manage all of the fundraising, all of the organization of it, all of the design, all the permits, all the construction, everything. They could completely manage that. We're completely capable and ready to do that. So that's what we're asking. And certainly we'd love to have John, our scout John, to be part of this project. We think it's perfect for him to get involved. There's plenty to do, and we really encourage and invite you into this as well. So, yes.
It is CROA property. Do we have to go through TCC on the design or not?
I think we would. Yes, absolutely. We would present that to them and say, you know, we need their blessing. Yep. This prominent of a location. Yep.
Jeffrey, is that the only location you looked at? Is there another possibility?
No. We've looked at many other possibilities.
Well, I mean, my concern is that we have the Veterans Memorial over there, and now that's going to completely block the Veterans Memorial. And I know you say it's not going to destroy the brick pavers around there, but you're going to be bringing heavy equipment on that stuff to put the monument up.
Well, we would probably take the bricks up and put them right back down. They're not, that's easy to do.
I'd still like to consider some other spot.
Mm-hmm. We have looked at many other spots, you know, across from the old town hall in that little square. There's nothing that's quite as prominent and obvious, not only for the time capsule, but for a monument that identifies our 5 cornerstones. That's the other sort of dual purpose here. But
sorry, go ahead.
You want to go ahead?
Go ahead.
In concept, I love it. I will say location, I'm a little back and forth, but you're in the very beginning, you're just at the drawing board.
Yeah.
I do like that the time capsule itself actually embraces a majority of the cornerstones, so it's actually applying them. So I like that. In concept, I like the very beginning stages in this brainstorming going on.
We actually talked about possibly on the backside of each pier, there would be a time capsule for each cornerstone that people would contribute to.
So Jeffrey, what about putting it out in the middle of the field there?
Could be. I know the field's used quite a bit for events and other things.
We put tents on either side of that area when we're doing the flag raising, and I don't see where that would really interfere with it. It'd certainly give it its own.
We could look at that.
Prominence.
Sure, we could look at that. Yeah. Yes.
I love the idea, and I think I see in my note is make sure people know where it is, because we did one for the school and nobody seems to know where that one is.
Right.
But the design to me just doesn't, I'll just be honest.
It's all right.
Doesn't fit in. Doesn't fit with what I would.
You'd like to see some classical columns, maybe?
Yeah, just that kind of thing. If you were to go further back, and you know this design better than I do, but there's that kind of that wall area where people speak and they face the park.
So that's the Veterans Memorial.
Yeah, the actual memorial. Is there anything, going off of what Jack was saying, kind of along there where you're not completely in the middle of the field?
We looked at it. We didn't feel like we should invade that memorial. We felt like we needed to be completely separate and not that sort of hollowed ground right there. I'd rather.
Right. Is there, if you go to another concept and you look at the other three corners of the park, being at Still Founders Park, possibly?
If I understand where you're coming from today and the entire committee, it's just to see if this is something that CROA would participate in when the time comes.
Yeah.
This is just feelers right now, seeing if this is something that this board would be interested in participating in or assisting with the land or whatever the case is. And with that, I think I would say yes. But right now, we'll leave it to the experts to decide the style, the location, and so on. So I don't think it needs to be a lengthy discussion right now, apart from it's a blessing, if you will. And I'm in favor of seeing what comes of this.
Great.
Agreed.
Great.
Okay. So I have a comment and a question.
Yes.
The comment is, I love the idea. I love the 5 cornerstones.
Great.
All part of that. The question is, the new urbanism committee sponsored Dawn Thomas on Monday.
Yes.
She had a marvelous lecture. Thank you for the sponsorship. She mentioned time capsule that does exist. She didn't talk about where. Is it? Is that a school time capsule? Or
apparently there's a school time capsule and one for the town center that the merchants had put
so
together.
There's not,
We have a copy of the town center.
But there's not a town
time
capsule yet?
No.
Okay.
And they're...
She didn't talk about it, but it was a nice reference that she did.
Right. We kind of like the idea of the perpetual time capsule as well that could be reopened over and having it in a really obvious spot rather than buried over in the woods somewhere.
I think an obvious spot makes sense.
Is probably wise.
And I think Kevin's summary is a marvelous one.
Sure.
You're looking for conceptual, not in terms of design, conceptual approval to keep moving. And I hope your movement's in a timely way so John is accommodated.
Yes.
There's no rush.
I think we're in sync with that timing, definitely. We talked about that already.
If it's going to live for 100 years, let's do it right.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Can I make a motion that we proceed conceptually with the, we'd love the idea, and just modify or work on the design?
I don't know that there's really any action that you need to take today, just as long as you all are nodding your heads that you're okay with this proceeding.
You don't need a motion. We're good.
Look at design, look at just look at location and come back again soon.
Thank you.
And thank you for all you guys do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. The next action item is
discussion of Celebration Community Services. I'll let David talk on that, but we had a meeting earlier tonight between 5 and 6 for Celebration Community Services. And
so a couple of quick updates. Celebration Community Services, I think as we may have reported in a prior meeting, we had, all of us were informed that this existed, and we had a first meeting about a month ago, And so we had a second meeting today. That makes meeting number 3 in 15 years that we have records for. So we had 2 in the last 2.5 months. So we had 3 actual agenda items. One is approving the minutes, so we refined the minutes just to make them clear, then they will be public. And by the way, the meeting was filmed and will be posted tomorrow or as soon as Patrick can do that. So that is there for all to view. So one was approval of the minutes. The second was talked about an audit firm. So what we approved was an audit firm looking back 5 years. And we asked that this be a group that follows something called GAAP, G-A-A-P.
Generally accepted accounting
Principles, that there be no, whatever firm or individuals are involved, have no conflict of interest with CROA, with management company, with CROA board members, current or future, that it have a specialty in nonprofits, and that they complete their work within 90 days. And so that was something that we voted on and passed. The other thing that we voted on and passed that was about having an attorney, a separate attorney, look at this, and we did approve that, and I know that there'll be some discussion on that.
Restricted to a couple issues.
Say that again?
Restricted to 2 areas that they were going to look at.
Yeah, and we had 2 areas. One is to look at Article 5 of the founding documents for CCS, Celebration Community Services, and the other was to look at the flow of funding. And so that was what we voted on.
Hold on, Jackson.
And then we finished that meeting after 55 minutes.
Yes.
Jackson.
I have a number of different questions here.
Thank you.
The first question with respect to the audit is, what's the anticipated cost?
We don't know.
We don't know.
Need to go get.
We're hoping 10 to 15. I don't know. It might be just 10.
The answer is I don't really know. So if we start with a balance sheet at December 31st, 2013, and roll it forward 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, we got to get the records together. I don't think we have proper enough records yet to do it. We need to make it efficient. We really need to sit here and say, here is the full financials, here's the supporting records so they can test it. It'll be at least $10,000 or $15,000 because you're not using an existing auditor, you are using a new firm which has to get comfortable with the control environment and everything like that.
My second question then, with respect to the audit, is if there is a fee for an auditor, whatever that amount is, 10, 15,000, 5,000, who's responsible for paying that fee? Where do the funds come from for it?
I would say it would be 75% from CROA and 25% from.
I think it would cut. CCS has got its own cash. It would be a Celebration Community Services expenditure. It'd come out of those funds.
It would come out of those funds.
It has a budget.
That's where it would have to come.
Right. Yeah.
So, as I read the bylaws are silent on a couple of items, one of which is the question of expenditures and who pays for them. I think there is a reasonable reading that the only member of CCS is CROA, and that therefore, if those are CROA funds, that CROA has the obligation to take this matter up and decide whether or not to approve any expenditure. If you're telling me that that's going to be paid wholly out of CCS money, and if the reason that we're doing this audit in the first place is to figure out where CROA money went when it went into CCS, I would suggest that there is a reason for CROA then to make a decision about whether or not we want to spend $10,000 to $15,000 to track down $10,000 or $15,000 of CROA money that went in over a period of years. I don't know the answer. I'm simply asking that that's a legal question. Go ahead.
There's more than CROA money that went in there. There is $500,000. I repeat, there's $500,000 that went into this fund from a developer. So there are substantial funds that are not CROA that remain in the account.
Are you telling me there's $500,000 from Pritzker still in that account?
No, most of it was spent, but I'm just saying, $500,000 of the money. It wasn't all CROA money.
His head no.
It wasn't all CROA money.
Okay, so 500,000 went in the fourth quarter of 2007. It was used to build the lakeside tennis courts,
I think, and I've asked Susan here, we need more documentation. My guess is about $350,000 went to build the lakeside tennis courts, another $150,000, part of that went to tennis court lights, and another went to a security system all around town. So basically, the entire $500,000, in my opinion, was spent on CROA-related stuff. I have no clue what is $500,000.
But it's not CROA money.
Give me a second.
That is correct.
Give me a
There's also the.
All right, I'm just trying to clarify.
Just let me keep going. Okay. So the $500,000 was all spent before any period we're talking about auditing. So the only thing we're talking about here is we had an asset which should have never, in my opinion, been a CCS asset that's been depreciated. That's where I had made the recommendation to move it over. The net depreciation left is about $2,000, so it's peanuts. Then during this period, we've had three CJC expenditures of about $20,000 that came in. We did have the merchandise logos, which sold heavily in the early years, hasn't sold so greatly in the later years. So really what we're doing here is we're auditing some grants. I mean, if we cut through the BS, that's really what we're doing. There's 4 or 5 grants that have been coming through for the last 4 or 5 years. That's what we're doing.
I'm going to make the argument that this is an expenditure that CROA needs to approve because we are spending money that ultimately has some connection back to CROA. If we're going to, and I'm not in favor of doing the audit, I mean, I'll just tell you, but if we're going to do it, then I think we need to approve that expenditure. But I also recognize that there is a legal question as to whether or not that's our right. And so we get to the deeper question of who is the member and who is responsible for making those decisions. And that leads me to the second set of problems I've got with the decisions made by CCS board earlier tonight. You've indicated that you approved a decision to go and talk to an attorney, and I presume this means an attorney different than Larson and Associates. Yes. The problem here, and Vaughn, help me out if I'm mistaken in my understanding, and I am, for the record, I am not giving legal advice. I am simply reflecting having taught Florida professional responsibility for 30 years,
yes, we know.
Having written a couple of books and lectured to several thousand people on the subject. So other than that, I don't know anything about it. But when you go to an attorney and you say, I would like advice about a situation, the attorney should ask you, are you currently represented in this matter? If you say, yes, I am currently represented in this matter, that attorney should indicate to you that they, under the Florida rules of professional responsibility, cannot have that conversation until you terminate the relationship with your first attorney. Go ahead, Debbie. I mean, correct me.
No, wait till you're finished. Go ahead.
Okay. So, as I understand the decision that you made in your board meeting, I believe that that decision would actually be in violation of Florida professional responsibility ethics unless your resolution was to terminate the relationship with Larson and Associates. And again, I'm not entirely certain you can do that, but if you did, was that the motion today?
It's not. The latter part is not.
That's a very, Jackson, it's a very good point, and I'm not an attorney, so I didn't actually include that in the motion, but I think it's absolutely fine to terminate it with Larson Associates for this and get their records, move it over, if that's what we need to do. We did also make a motion for the accountant, and we're not terminating with Cole.
That's not, I understand that's different. I cannot speak to the rules of accounting ethics.
No,
but under, Vaughn, am I off base here?
My question is, part of the motion during your CCS meeting, was part of the motion including going to Tom, the Larson Associates first and explaining this and asking their opinion on it before?
We've already got their opinion. We've already got their opinion on Article 5. We're asking for a second opinion, and I know you can get a second opinion from doctors.
I know we got their opinion, but have we gone on this topic that Jackson was talking about? Have we gone to Larson Associates to ask him his opinion about us going to another attorney?
We have not, because we just made the motion like an hour ago.
How do we do that?
We pick up the phone and we go, Tom, we've got a board of 3.
No, not a phone. I think we need to go and ask for a formal opinion from Tom whether or not we should be going to other counsel.
Oh, okay.
Because exactly what Jackson was saying.
Okay.
You can't have 2 attorneys working on the same thing without them even knowing about it.
How about this? And I'm happy to make the call, or David is president, I'm vice president, one of us, 3 of us, I don't care what. Here's the issue. We've had CCS for 13 years. There's never been an audit. There's a lot of questions from the community. and I don't know if you've received any questions, but I have certainly had a very, very busy week. I would respect that you're a board member of CROA, and I ask for your respect that these three right here had to make some very difficult decisions today. Brian and I duked it out a few times. We've had, a heated meeting. You'll be able to see it on tape. It was very draining. We are the three that were charged with making these decisions. If there is some law we're violating and asking an attorney, another attorney, I am sure that as a licensed attorney, they will make that very clear to us. And in all due respect, Jackson, you are not our lawyer right now, and I appreciate both of your legal advice, but I would like for you to respect that we are the three that had made these decisions, and if there's a problem, when we contact this attorney, or if you would like Steve to talk to Tom first and get his permission, but we've made the decision, we've made the motion, we have to, by statute, follow through with our motions. We spent a great deal of time doing the best we could do to answer some questions for an organization that's been around 13 years. In all due respect for the audit expense, we spent $10,000 on a concert. I certainly think it's worth spending $10,000 or roughly that. It's not going to be exorbitant because, as Brian says, there's very little activity. He's a professional. He's our treasurer. I respect his opinion and his advice. If these gentlemen had a serious problem with anything that was discussed, they would have let me know. And I know this is very difficult for all of us. This is my last meeting, and I just have to say that it was our intention to try to make
Let me jump in for 1 second.
as much of a transition smooth for the board that's coming up. They can certainly come in, Jackson, and change absolutely everything. You could be on that board if you're president, vice president, or treasurer. They may dissolve it, I don't know. But we did the best we could do, Jackson, and I appreciate your professionalism and understanding that.
So, did you want to?
Let me summarize, because
thank you.
On the 5 years' worth of financials, I was pretty clear that I didn't think it was necessary. And in all honesty, the crowd booed me.
They didn't boo you, they just said, what are you hiding?
What am I hiding?
It wasn't a bad boo.
And I jumped on that person. I'm not worried about the audit at all. I don't think we're going to find out that everything's perfectly clean. I think there's been some stuff.
Vanessa, did you want to say something?
We're not taking audience comments at this point.
So in other words, I think this is a company that has not been closely watched, and that was just an error. I mean, so I don't even want to argue that. We'll go through, we'll do the 5-year audit. It's not a huge deal. It is going to cost $10,000, $12,000, whatever it costs. But if it gives people peace, we'll have an audited financial for a 5-year period, and it'll just be a peaceful thing. It came down to 2 legal questions, which to me is the only thing that we're really talking about here. The question was raised by Debbie. It's on tape, so I mean I can use names here. You know, is it legal for CCS to collect funds and send them on to Lexington?
To collect for a 501c3 for a not-for-profit and give to a for-profit private corporation.
And my argument is Lexington's got very good records. I met with Mike Nunez yesterday. He's got great records. He's actually going to move forward to get his own 501c4. So I see this as something that is self-correcting in a period of time. Experienced Kissimmee knows that this money has been going to Lexington. So I would be shocked if there's something illegal there, but that is the legal question. And then the question was raised about Article 5 and what is CROA, and we have Tom's opinion there. So the question was raised on the first item. Can you get an opinion from somebody who really understands the legality around 501c4 issues? So that's a legal question there. And then you've got the legal question around Article 5, and you've got one opinion. You get a second one. That I'll leave up to the lawyers. But those were the 2 issues that were discussed.
This is the same as getting a medical second opinion.
Well,
Legal second opinions are not the same thing.
No, it is not the same thing, because if you got a if you went to a general physician and then you had to go to a radiologist, it's a different specialty. This is similar in that we've got an opinion from Tom Slayton, but we're asking for a different specialty of lawyer, which is a nonprofit attorney. And out of respect,
I don't have any problem with that, but the problem I have is going to another lawyer when you already have, CROA has a lawyer, has a law firm. We have Larson Associates that represents CROA. And CCS, I mean, you're on CCS.
We 100% own it, so we didn't.
Yeah, it's all,
That's
but,
part of CROA.
I mean, to go to another attorney without even letting Larson and Associates know.
No, we could certainly, absolutely, I'm
That's-
sure he knows.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
You
I'm
need to
sure
go to
he
him
knows,
first
yeah.
and say, this is what we plan on doing. Is there a problem with it, with your
Absolutely.
firm? And then go.
Would you like me to-
Let me ask
So-
you a question. You know, I fundamentally don't like spending $10,000 on a $100,000 company just to do an audit. So my question for you is, with Mike getting his own 501c4, what would be the purpose of us retaining the CCS, the 501c4?
There would be no reason to
So
retain
then
it
why don't
other.
you just dissolve it?
No, well, that would be the board's decision. You could do one of two things. You could keep it for Posh Pooch and some other things that David's thought
Why
about.
don't we just dissolve it?
Wait just a second, or you could dissolve it, but that's the board's decision. That's not our decision.
So we
That's
had
the
two
CCS
agenda
decision.
items. We dealt with those two. We flirted with that, but that was not part of our discussion. That is for the future. The two items we talked about, one was the audit firm, and we've talked about that. The legal question, what Jackson has raised, is something that I, for one, and I don't know about Debbie or Brian, was not aware of.
Well, I did.
So what I think would be appropriate is I am happy to call Tom and ask, could he answer the question, our second question that has not been
No.
addressed, which is the flow of the funding, and just ask if he, how does he feel, does his company, does his organization have the expertise with nonprofit? And if, so, I did not know that by engaging another attorney, that is problematic.
It's not
And I would
problematic.
not want to go that way.
It is problematic.
No, it is problematic according to the law.
It's hold on.
Am I correct, engaging
No,
another
whoa,
attorney?
whoa, here's the deal.
Am I correct?
CCS, the board did not hire this attorney. We did not hire him. It came to us without any consultation or decision. We were handed this. This, again, is a third meeting in 13 years. Give it a rest. We did not hire this attorney. Please make the call and ask Tom who has a problem and get an opinion for something else. We made a motion. The three of us made a motion. I stand by that. And if you want to move on with this meeting, I'm not going to finish talking. The three of us made a motion. Out of a professional courtesy, you call Tom Slayton, please, and say, we, as a board of three people here, made a motion to consult and ask a question of another attorney. Do you professionally have a problem with that? If he does, please email the other board members, Brian and myself, and we will go from there. If we have to have an emergency meeting, we all live very close together. Can we stay with that? Can you give him a call and ask him in the next 2 business days if he has a problem? And I'm sorry, Jackson, you're shaking your head. I apologize that this is not something that you're...
He is CROA's attorney. CCS is part of CROA.
In the meantime...
No, it's really its own entity.
In the meantime, moving forward, can we, management, assist with scheduling an executive session in the month of March to focus on this? When the new board comes on and all the information that we have, we're going to need to sit down and have a legal opinion in a room, closed off, to really know what we're dealing with the entire thing, and then report back to the public.
Can't do this behind Larson Associates' back.
He's calling him in the next 2 business days. And can I say that
I
I've
don't know
had...
about calling. Should we have an executive session to talk
Before
to
he
him?
calls? No.
Why not?
No.
Why not?
For 2
what are you
reasons.
afraid of?
You're not... What am I afraid of?
Yeah. What are you afraid of? Why
What are
can't
you
we have an
afraid of?
executive session?
I've had a case before where I've had 2
I wanna talk
attorneys.
to the
Guess
attorney
what?
myself.
They
I wanna
work
be
together.
there. I think the whole board should be there.
You know what?
Talking to
I know you guys don't like feeling left out, and I apologize that you're not on the CCS board. Trust me, I would trade places in a second. In a second. This has been...
Is there a concern with talking with Tom at this, just to seek his counsel? Because he is...
I would not be in favor of doing that until the new board has been elected.
Oh, dear goodness. Really. I'm sorry, but it's not your decision.
We didn't put
If we
it-
need to fire Tom, we could do that.
I'm not saying it's my decision. I'm
It's
saying
not your
it is one
decision.
of the...
It's the board of 3. We're right here. We had a meeting.
Might I finish my thought?
You weren't here at the meeting.
Might I finish my thought?
You can finish your thought, Jackson, but I know how you argue, and I'm not going to end until you end. Go ahead. Executive session is illegal. We are not in litigation. If you look up statute 720, it is illegal to hold an executive session unless you have 2 reasons: personnel or pending litigation. Is there pending litigation on this, Jackson? Are you suing somebody?
So we didn't put a timeline on the legal piece, so that could be deferred.
Why?
It can be, because we did not put a timeline on when we would contact the attorney. We did not have a timeline like we did for
We
the
also
auditor.
didn't say who would contact the attorney, so I'll be making calls tomorrow.
Tom made a comment once, and you'll remember, I think the whole board will remember that, and Debbie, you brought this up in one of your emails about saying that there has been ethical violations on this issue with CCS funding and illegal.
No.
You used the word, Debbie, I've got the email from you, it says illegal. You
Yes,
used
it
the word
actually is illegal. It is illegal to
You
sign
said it
something.
directly. You go to him, you don't talk about it anymore. That's an executive session. And
As
you
a board
said it was-
member, I can use the word illegal. We use the word illegal all the
No,
time.
illegal means illegal, against the law, and that's what you said.
It actually is a
And in that
third-class felony.
case, if that's against the law,
So there's pending litigation against me?
if it's illegal, go to the prosecutor's office. Take your evidence to the prosecutor.
I'd be happy
But
to do
we
that.
need to talk, do
If
it.
that's what you want me to do.
Do it.
Okay.
No, take it.
Okay, okay.
But we need to talk to Tom in executive session.
Why? Is there pending litigation? Am I suing anyone? I will say on record, no. I am not suing anyone. I will sign right now, I am not suing anyone. I have no intent to sue anyone. Where is the pending litigation?
Pending
President, I
litigation.
make a
You're accusing
motion-
people
Where is the
of
pending
illegal
litigation?
activity.
Mr. President, I make a motion that discussion of Celebration Community Services with any attorney or legal advisor be delayed until after the election of the next board in March. That's my motion.
Thank you, Jackson. We have a second.
Repeat that motion again, Jackson.
That we delay any discussion with an attorney regarding CCS until after the new board has been elected in March.
What about amending that to state that we have an executive session regarding the claims that there's been illegal activity against the board in an executive session with Larson Associates?
I
Wait a
would be
minute.
glad to amend the motion to include.
Where
that.
is the illegal activity
Wait,
against the
there's a
board?
motion.
No, you last.
I would be glad to accept that if there's a second.
Okay, I would second it.
So
Now we can have
Rachel
discussion.
would like to have that read back.
Unbelievable.
The statement is that CROA will withhold any discussion regarding Celebration Community Services with legal counsel other than an executive session to be held in March, and that the board will defer any decisions until after a new board is elected in March 2019. Is that correct, Vaughn?
Sounds correct.
That's correct.
Discussion?
Discussion on that.
I do have a question on this. I understand both sides of it.
Thank you, Brian.
If these residents sitting in the audience right now, they are members of CROA, just as we are members of CCS. And when the CCS board makes a decision to do a certain thing, they proceed. If we make a decision to do a certain thing, we proceed. Our membership, we can listen to them, but that cannot change the decision that has occurred. And if in the prior meeting, I'm not here for the dramatics of this, I'm here to find out what happened, where it started, and the entire picture. And if that, I believe, is the feeling of the entire board, is to know the full story.
I think that's a good question, because
that's what we're trying to figure out.
the question comes up, is CCS a separate entity from CROA? Does CROA have any control over CCS at all? And I think that was brought up in a question.
CROA's attorney, Tom Slayton, drafted this document on behalf of CROA. Once it's set it free as a 617, it's a child, it grew up, it's 18, it's out the door.
Right.
We no longer have say, and I'm not a lawyer. That's what I'm hoping to understand, because I'd like to see where the legal line item is, where the retainer is for Tom Slayton, where the management contract is for CCMC to be over CCS. I'm missing this information.
No,
That information that would help me understand.
you're asking very fair questions. We have something from Tom Slayton that clearly says CROA, and I don't think CROA is actually well-defined, is the one who's responsible for and the owner for CCS, and CCS is underneath CROA, so we shouldn't really be arguing.
Wait, they said CCS is under CROA? They have no authority over CROA. It's a separate, it's a nonprofit. If they have authority over it, then we have violated state law with a nonprofit.
Then we don't use any CROA funds for any CCS issues, right?
But CROA is the only, CROA is the board members, is the board. I mean, so we can't argue about whether or not CROA is the board. It actually says CROA members, which is the audience,
do not have rights as regards. It says CROA is the board. So we shouldn't be arguing that. If we want, I'm not going to argue as a lawyer, but to me, Article 5 is what actually drives whatever it is we're talking about here. Because the financial audit is pretty easy. You can argue about whether or not you want to spend $10,000. That's a fair question. But, you know, it's really, okay, who is it? And does CROA have the right to pull strings or not is kind of defined out of Article 5. To me, that becomes the business question that has to be answered. Well, it's a legal question and it's a business question because at the end of the day, we as an entire board have failed to ever have a budget that I'm aware of, and we should all point fingers at ourselves and at every prior president, vice president, and treasurer. It's just not happened. I do not believe for 1 second anything illegal's happened, and I don't believe for 1 second that there's bad things here. So I believe this is house cleaning. But that is the Article 5 question, because then I think we're going to find out that, yes, everybody knew it was passing on to Lex, and it's a 501c4. They can set up their own 501c4. I believe that's a legal question that gets answered pretty quick, and I think that's
dramatic. That's why my motion is asking for time to be able to get that answer.
Call the question. Call the question.
You want to finish your discussion?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Call the question? All in favor of the motion from Jackson?
Somebody read the motion again. Rachel, can you read the motion?
We had it.
We had it from Vaughn.
Was the second.
We had it from Vaughn. Thank you.
Brian.
So basically, as it stands, Jackson is motioning to withhold any further discussion and instead of let the discussion until March 2019 before the members are seated.
So here's what I have written down. Delay any discussion with attorney regarding CCS until new board appointed in March or an executive session held in March because of legal issues that were brought up.
That's correct, Steve. That's the motion we're voting
on. Can I make a comment, Debbie?
Please.
I think.
Is it an olive branch, a compromise?
Well, I'm just saying to have no conversation until after the election will just inflame the back porch. So what is the harm in having a conversation with Tom Slayton where all 7 of us can be present and have the conversation?
And then at least,
we can do it before the new board. I'm asking if we can do it before the new board, because at least then we can have this argument in executive session with Tom Slayton, and if he says, go talk to a lawyer under these rules, then what are the rules? At some point, I would like to know the rules, because the issue's not going away for us. Go ahead, Jack.
Well, one of the things that troubles me is this board is still to be a board of 5. A 4.1 of the bylaws says you will have 2 additional directors. I would like to see a fully constituted board. You know, for 2 months now, you guys have been operating without a full board.
Actually, may I address that? I talked to Mike Hartford and invited him to the meeting.
Mike Hartford's termed back?
Actually, he's not. Let me just pass this along to you all.
He was on the annual report. He was on the most recent.
I thought he was turned out. Hold on. There's so many things here.
Well, Debbie, so can then just for logistical purposes, if you were to have an executive session, you still have to post it 48 hours out. So you do have a 2-day window before you can do it.
I think our suggestions were different. Mine was in March. It's going to need to happen.
And you have an annual meeting next Wednesday. So
I would just, since we're still talking about this, apparently after we had you moved the question, but a year ago, 4 of us came onto this board
for transparency.
Can I finish? Yeah. 4 of us came onto this board with facing decisions that were made by the previous board in their last meeting of the year.
That happens every year, Jackson.
And that kind of behavior was something that we said should not occur. I think it merits having the new board involved. This has obviously been something that's got people interested and informed, and I appreciate that it may rile up the back porch, and God knows we live in fear of the back porch. But at the end of the day, we're elected to do a certain job and to be fiduciary managers.
Yes, we are.
And that fiduciary management includes good legal management as well. And for us to rush headlong into doing something that there is a real open question about whether or not it's proper is a rush to judgment before we have a new board. I'm not asking that we don't do anything. I'm not asking that we don't pay for an audit. All I'm asking is that we give ourselves enough time for the new board to be constituted and then to hold the executive session and to make the decisions that need to be made. There will be a new CCS, at least one member of the CCS that will be new after that new board is elected.
Yes, I will be gone, yes.
And it seems to me that that's a prudent step to take tonight, rather
Excuse
than
me.
trying to be rushed into something.
I will say something. Once again, I appreciate that, Jackson, but you are not on that board. I cannot come to you once I'm off this board and say to you as a core board member, you know what, Jackson, I really think you need to hold that or change that. You have absolutely no standing. When a vote has been made, it is our fiduciary responsibility to abide by that vote. The three of us sat here and hammered this out. If Tom Slayton has that big a problem with asking another lawyer 2 simple questions.
Well, actually, we do have standing. Under Section 4 and Section 5 in the bylaws, we do have standing because we're the member of CCS.
You are members, but you didn't come to the meeting. The meeting's expired. You can't go back and recreate the meeting.
We have, yeah, and we have been informed of something we did not know 2 hours ago. So we have a question that's been called.
We do.
We all ready to vote?
We're losing people online. Yes, we're ready.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Who was the ayes? Okay, your nay, Brian?
I'm trying to figure out what I am.
I'm a nay.
I'm nay.
Well, Debbie, we know you're nay.
Just want to be sure because there's a lot of confusion around
We're very
here.
clear that you're nay.
Are you?
So Kevin is a nay.
Brian, I just want to point out, without voting, you will be considered
You're
a
a yay,
positive.
so you need to vote, just so you
You'll
know.
become
Yeah.
a yes if you don't vote.
Yeah. So you'd be voting against yourself.
But I've already voted. I mean, I'm trying to figure out what it is that I
We're not changing the CCS.
We're not changing the
I understand. We're just
CDD. or-
We just want to talk to Larson before.
Is anything in anybody's vote right now going against what their vote was earlier on CCS?
It's not, it's a different
what I'm
vote. It's a
trying to
different
figure
issue.
out.
It's a question, it's a
See, what
question
I'm
of
struggling
timing.
with is, I just want to talk to Larson, and I'd like to have a group conversation with Larson.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, that's what this is. It's just a matter of when it's gonna be.
If the motion is that we want to have a group conversation with Larson, I want to do that.
Can we do that by Monday?
The only other thing I want to point out is that whatever your motion or vote is, it doesn't trump the legality of the law. So you can't make a motion and approve it if it's against a county ordinance or a state statute or a federal law. So I completely understand the argument that there was a vote made, but if there's a question being raised about the legality of the vote that was made, then I think you have a responsibility.
Well, that's where I'm struggling. I would just like to get the legality answer
Can we
answered.
do that either Thursday, Friday, or Monday, please?
It has to be
Part of
48
his
hours.
motion,
It has to be 48 hours.
So
Can
even
we
if
do
we
that
post it-
either Friday or Monday?
The motion that has been voted on and passed was to wait until a new board was elected.
That's why it's a nay.
right, so that's it.
So how are you voting?
Then I'm a
with that?
nay. I mean, I would be willing to do it before
I would too.
then. I want to have the conversation. It's past 4-3 though, so we're there.
Okay.
So say that
We're
again.
going to need do a poll real quick. Rachel needs a full poll.
Yeah, let's do a poll.
I'm a nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
All right.
That help? Okay.
Okay.
Next
I
item.
would have done it.
Item 3, discussion of July 4th activities.
I'd like to start, if that's okay?
Yes, sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going for broke tonight in the back, ladies. As CROA board members, we represent the homeowners. Although I support the businesses in our community, and I'm on the board for the largest business in the community as a patient advocate. I'm sorry?
Got to speak into your microphone.
As CROA board members, we represent the homeowners. Although I support the businesses in our community, and I'm on the board for the largest business in our community as a patient advocate, they, with all due respect, have their own board, which is CROA. Our obligation is to the residents of Celebration and their families. Lexington is receiving grant money to the tune of $50,000 to $80,000 per year for Now Snowing, Hearts of Reality, Oktoberfest, and one other event. I am opposed to partnering with Lexan on any events. They have funds to have their own events. We have an event, we have our own events. I do not see there's any reason to partner with Lexan. They have made decisions that I feel are not in the best interest of our community. 4 years ago, I met with Steve in his office, and we spoke to Tom Slayton on the phone. It was the first time that I'd spoken to Tom Slayton as a board member. I believe it was the first couple of months I was on the board. We asked and sent a certified letter to Metin Negrin, who's the head of Lexan in New York, a certified letter requesting that repairs be made to 660 Celebration Avenue, specifically to suites 140, 50, and 60. A structural wall had been removed, and this was done without permission of the county. Lexan refused to address this. There are, and still are, little children in suites 140 and 50 for Montessori school. The unit above has shifted, and they were at risk of a catastrophic situation. This was laid out in a letter. Steve can, I'm sure he remembers this, that there was a potentially catastrophic situation. Tom Slayton addressed it, and they have yet to replace the structural wall, to site the business, to make safety repairs to this. What they did, and someone addressed it earlier tonight, is they propped up all of those balconies in front, which are actually pulling away and causing some of the shift in the units. And I think they just recently painted them after 3 years. Again, I just don't feel a partnership would be warranted with someone that has so little regard for the safety of small children and residents. And as far as security for events, the board had previously, and I realize boards can just change their votes whenever, but the board had previously, and Jack and David were there, had addressed that every condo complex downtown would have a representative on a security committee. That was for Water Street, Town Center Condo Association, and both Carlisle North and South. That board was taken offline very quickly because Mike Nunes refused to attend the meetings. That's his prerogative. But again, I just don't feel it's a good partnership. And for that reason, I would like 4th of July, it was stated by, I believe, Eileen Barr, was a good idea, 4th of July to remain a resident-supported event. If Lexan wants to do fireworks and have the big party, that's totally up to them, but I would like for them to be separate, and that's my recommendation.
So I'd like to, everybody don't shoot eyes at me yet. Okay. It's clearly a difficult position, and it's something on Monday, Susan and I sit down, we do a board packet review where we look at what's in the packet, what's going on. Jackson invited me to that, he attends that. And this is an item that came up, clearly, because it's on the board packet. And my issue, and this is just me, when Lexan runs an event, is it seems to go rampant around town. And it seems as though there's been opinions that it didn't operate in the best way possible. CCS was a conversation that you just heard, and the next board coming on, who knows how it will proceed. This conversation I'm coming from is not based on having any grants money within it. I do not believe the grants money relationship should exist any further, and similar to Brian, this is going to surprise a lot of people. I sat down with Mike Nunez. Nobody died and nobody was arrested, so that's impressive. But I wanted to understand the full picture and how to do this right. So the grant money would no longer happen, and this would stop this from being a regional event. That was one of the larger concerns, and what in turn creates this animosity. There will be traffic that clearly will happen. Outside residents will happen. We have to develop a full plan. But I said it last year, and I wanted to make sure that celebration was still a 4th of July. This is a very Americana town, and figuring out how to make that work. JR has mentioned, not to put you on the spot, but we could own the event of CROA, of the 4th of July as CROA. And I know Eileen mentioned it, it's going to be difficult. It is not by any means going to be easy of containing it, but we need to discuss it. Lexington offered sponsoring fireworks. This is just something that was put on the table. That would be no different than somebody sponsoring a concert. I think the conversation needs to be had. Is that fair for this board to say?
I agree with that.
It will not involve grant money. It will not involve marketing, regional, of any capacity, and we will review every attempt to ensure it is a safe event. There is a process, and if for a second it looks as if it's going to go out of hand and not controlled, then it's not going to be something that CROA puts on. We'll move it to Artisan, we'll move it to another area to keep it resident only. But let's see what we can do.
I can tell you the plan that you have in your board packet today is mirroring the 2016 event that CROA did run. It does address parking, it does address safety, it does address cleanliness and traffic throughout the community, which were the 4 big areas that the committee had looked at. And they utilized a lot of this plan to do this. The event would be an all-Americana 4th of July, and it would not be advertised through the radio or anything along those lines. It would just be the Celebration magazine, our website, our local media channels that we utilize for marketing our events.
Who would pay for the fireworks?
The fireworks right now is the proposal being sponsored by Lexington for the 29,000.
So they'll advertise, though, for the event?
No, that would be one of the
they're not going to
terms.
utilize
No
grant money for it. They're just going to utilize their marketing dollars.
So to clarify, what the proposal is to have a CROA-sponsored 4th of July celebration that goes beyond the parade.
Well, I don't think we talked about funding just yet.
Isn't that what the proposal is?
Well, it depends on how it's funded. CROA doesn't have the dollars budgeted for this, so it would either come from the 20,000 that CJC has budgeted for special events, or some of the dollars that are in CCS.
And this was my second.
But is CROA sponsored and CROA run? The whole package is CROA run?
Technically, the staff running it would be under CJC and CROA. But
okay. Excuse me.
While they're talking about this, Lexington actually could not use grant money for this because Experience Kissimmee, the CEO, said they do not ever provide grant money for fireworks because so many communities do.
They cannot use grant money for fireworks, only for marketing and advertising.
Yeah.
That Jackson does bring up a good point. There's no decision coming tonight of the 4th of July. At least I will not be. I hate to say that I made it look that way. I am not pushing for an approval right now. I'm saying we need to look at it.
Well, here's the only problem. We are running out of time.
I was going to say,
If we don't get a decision, we're not going to be able to give you a quality
Steve?
event.
all right,
My one comment, hold on the running out of time.
Yeah.
When did you begin conversation about the 4th of July? When was your first sit down with Mike about the 4th of July for 2019?
I brought it to the board as soon as I had it at the next available meeting.
It's-
It was not held on to or delayed at any point in time.
Mike shared with me it was November.
I beg
so
to
just-
differ,
yeah, but we have been talking about this for a while.
We've been talking.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're
I don't want to be rushed right now.
Jack, go first, I'll go second.
What I wanted to say, at the CDD meeting, Gary Moyer said, he was asked if Mike Nunes had submitted a permit request. And he said, no, that was going to be CROA's responsibility. And they said it had to be done by the 28th
Of March, right?
No, 28th of February.
I think we have a good enough relationship with the CCDD that if we ask them to put a permit in.
Well, I think
we might
you're
be
talking
okay.
about to make the March agenda, it would need to. But for us to book a concert, a band, the items that we need to be able to put on a quality event.
Okay,
we do
we're
need
out of
to
time. Can I just go somewhere else with this? It makes no sense to do the 4th of July once. So is this something where we want to commit funds and commit to this longer term? I think that's a question. The second thing I'm really struggling with is I think we need a candidates forum, because the first question should be,
every candidate should be, are you willing to punish Lexington at all cost? I mean, we've just hit the point of nonsense. CCS is only about Lexington. This 4th of July concert has turned into a Lexington thing. No, I mean, it's to the point.
That's what happens when you step into this.
Well,
you're putting yourself in the ring.
Well, that's
so.
fine, but let's, you know, let's take Lexington out of the conversation, and let's talk about what's important, which is if you're going to have a fireworks and spend $30,000 for it next year, residents are going to say, great, they're having a fireworks, I want to go to the one next year. So do we want to commit $30,000 a year with Lexington paying another $30,000 to do fireworks every single year, or do we not think that is a good expenditure of money? We went through a budget process, we didn't put it in, and I actually remember we talked about some of this even while we were going through the budgeting, so this is not new. So that, to me, becomes the question, is the 4th of July something we want to support going forward, starting this year, or not? And that's what I'd like. The rest of it just falls into place.
If we do it this year, I'm looking for a future, a plan moving forward. It is every year doing it right. I don't want to get into the same tit for tat every 3 years of this nonsense. I also believe it needs to be a CJC conversation for their budget. Because it does involve commercial entities as well as residential. And I believe the funding for this year, with CCS still involved, I think the funding would come out of CCS, the balance coming from CJC with the parade. Parade is currently under CROA?
The parade's scheduled right now.
But it's under the expense of CROA?
It is under the expense of CROA.
And I would keep it that way.
And we've seen now, this is our 2nd year in a row where Lexington said they're pulling out of the 4th of July business. So it looks like this is the trend now that Lexington's not doing 4th of July moving forward.
Well, the reality is Lexington has an obligation to their tenants, and they have an obligation to go ahead and produce events. That's just the reality. That's why their tenants rent there. So the fireworks are going to happen, or some kind of an event's going to happen. How do we, this board represents the residents, and how do we move forward in the proper way to represent the residents moving forward on the 4th of July and working with the partner that's going to be there? And you know what's going to happen in 10 years from now? Island Village, that area is going to want to do a 4th of July. So we need to set a precedent for how we move forward each year for those events.
But you will not be able to control whether or not Lexington advertises. If Mike wants to advertise on his own, out of his own dollars, he can do that. I mean, he can go on signs. We just can't control that.
But if we're all going to sit down at a table and work together,
If we're going to have an agreement.
then we're going to have agreements of how it's going to operate.
Yeah.
And that is one of my terms.
Right.
That will be one of my terms. And if for a second they would like to go ahead and market, then one of my, this is just me, one of my requirements would be a security plan, a traffic plan. There's no question they do the entire
Parking
thing.
plan.
They hire the sheriffs. If they market, they control that aspect. We will be the #1 calling the shots because it will be our events.
Kevin, can I ask you a question?
This
Would
is a
March
workshop
11th, would that give you guys enough time to have this, have a little bit more conversation? Because I think that March 11th probably is our time frame for submitting the permits and securing the band and those types of things. So March 11th is the next workshop. I think that's got to be like the last drop dead date for
Let's
us to be able to move this
ensure
thing
it
forward.
is the first workshop agenda item.
I would support that.
Does the board feel doing the fireworks is important?
I mean, the 4th of July celebration is
Well, the last, this last year, fireworks came up because Lexington decided they weren't going to provide fireworks. So it came to the CROA board. We said the vote was no because we didn't, the residents, a lot of the residents were very vocal about not spending $58,000 total for fireworks going up for 20 minutes, whatever it happens to be. And it was a budgetary thing at the time. Now, if we don't want to do fireworks, we can certainly spend, if Lexington's going to do them, fine. I think they already said they were going to do the fireworks this year at a cost of about $28,000. We can spend our money on something else. We can do something at Founders Park. We got the parade. We can do things more in the pockets of the different villages. We can do stuff like that. It doesn't, I mean, the music, I don't know if we can do the music.
I don't think that was their intention at all. I think their intention is they'll sponsor fireworks if we hold the event.
If we hold an
Well,
event.
we're going to hold events, but we're
downtown.
downtown.
I think that the deal changes if we put the event somewhere else.
Well,
Why can't we have multiple events?
To your point of what you're saying, sorry, Mike did say this is something that he wants to do out of the goodness of his heart for Lexington to the residents. That's what he said. So
I thought he was
those
just
fireworks
gonna
can
do
go
it.
anywhere.
Yeah, but I think you're absolutely right. I mean, the downtown,
We're going to work.
the commercial businesses downtown benefit greatly from these events.
Can I speak as a previous business owner, or am I in the hate Lexington?
Go ahead.
As a what?
We owned a business in this community for 20 years. I will say that the restaurants benefit greatly. I've talked to store owners, many store owners. Of the ones that did not go bankrupt, which are, I think we're at 7 or 8 that went bankrupt that had a store down there, they are of the opinion that some events bring in a lot of people, and some don't. For example, on Now Snowing, they say it's great for the restaurants, it's great on the weekend, but on that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they struggle to get an extra staff to cover the hours. The owners usually have to come in themselves because nobody wants to work on those nights close to Christmas. So again, I am not against business. I have no problem with Lexington. I actually supported Mike Nunes for the majority of my time up until about, I'd say probably a couple years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. I was with him on CDD meetings. I gave him information on how he could compromise with the CDD board to not have fees imposed. And I know you're looking at me, Jackson, I'm sorry. I met with Mike on several occasions. I met with Mike and Susan Bono on several occasions. I have volunteered for events downtown. If Mike needed a person, I've made calls for him. We've negotiated about walls that have water pouring down. I mean, there's been a lot of history. I am not against Lexington. I am not against the events. I'm not against the businesses. I am for safety. I am for parking. I am for some sanity. When this community, we had 4 burglaries on December 20th in this community, in the main village, within the same 2 hours, by a gang from Chile. I have neighbors that came over late at night, terrified and frightened. One had an 80-pound pit bull. He came to speak at the meeting, but he was cut off. Of those 4 neighbors, 2 are moving. I have lived in the main village 22 years, and most of you know we are moving as well. I do not feel safe in the main village. I do not feel safe because during these events, the type of where, I don't know whether it's where the advertising is done or whatever, but the people coming to the events, it's masses. So whenever you get masses of people, whether it's the type, it's not the symphony. It's masses of people. They don't have tickets to sit and dress up and be all kumbaya. It's masses of people coming in. This was a really, really emotional and difficult decision for me. And I look at people here that I have raised children with. There's people in this community I've buried family with. I've been here 22 years, and this is the only home I've ever known. I do not feel safe, and the main reason is the events are too frequent. We have 53 days of Now Snowing. We have other events. I don't even know half the time. People are calling me, what is it? The street's blocked off. I don't know. I don't know. It's blocked off so many times. We've got a farmer's market that was moved out of downtown because some businesses complained. Now it's back downtown. I think Kevin has a very good perspective from living there. And I appreciate Kevin because he's sitting here as someone that's probably going to lose his home. But he's making very, I think, balanced decisions for the community. And there's also people in here that are probably going to lose their home because we've got someone that's not making.
Just to make it clear, nobody's
repairs.
losing their home. We're going to fight until we're done. Nobody's losing a home. So
I
let's
hope
just
not.
be clear on that.
I hope not.
So to summarize and to be clear on this issue, you're looking for a decision from the board. I'm sorry, not a decision. You're looking for guidance from the board. And as I see it, there's 4 potential choices, so clarify if this is wrong. Do nothing, 4th of July. Do absolutely nothing.
David, before you get into this, and I don't want to cut you off, can we push this to the workshop?
Sure, sure.
It's a much needed, it's going to be a long discussion.
It is a longer discussion.
It's going to be a long discussion.
Right. So, but is it true, one of the choices is no event at all?
I don't think that's a choice.
No, but that.
We gotta do something.
Well, no, he means the
No,
fireworks.
besides the parade.
We'd have the
I'm
parade in the
asking
morning.
to stop at this point and just move this to March 11th and workshop it, and then I think the 4 options that you want to discuss can be discussed. I mean, they merit discussion, but I think they merit discussion at something other than 9 o'clock, you know.
On action item 3.
Yeah.
I'm happy to move on. Is that enough guidance for now?
We're going to wait until March 11th, but I just want to go on record that March 11th's got to be our cutoff date for giving the quality event that you'll expect in this community.
The board will deal with that then. Action item 4, motion to approve the contract and funding for the 2019 Founders Day concert in the amount of $7,000 from the CROA operating expense.
Motion to approve.
Debbie motion and Jack second. Any discussion? You provided documentation. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Is it Lakeside or down?
Lakeside. Number 5.
Action 5, which is Technology Committee.
No, motion to renew.
I'm sorry. Renew a 1-year, 5-month contract with an option to renew with X Factor Dance as recommended by the Recreation Committee.
Motion to approve.
Jack moved,
Second.
Debbie seconded. Any discussion?
Yes. I spoke with the owner of X Factor, and we have had so many meetings and events and committees, and we're expanding and growing, which is wonderful. But it is impinging on her business. She's losing clients. They're going to different dance studios. She's been, I think, a fabulous partner for this community. And when I look at all the numbers we get in, she always has the most participants. I would just like, again, I'm leaving. This is not my show. But if you guys could look at a way to possibly accommodate that she doesn't have as many cancellations.
Sure, but I just want to make sure that this board and then the new board understands when we meet in the organizational meeting that every time we add new meetings, that affects other bookings in the room.
Can you have the calendars start being submitted to the board maybe the beginning of each month? Or
I think that's fair. We can look at what's already in place before we make a decision on adding new meetings.
That hurts everybody.
But I would say it is a good partnership. It is one of the biggest programs that we have, and we are asking for a little bit of an extension because their season runs until the summer, until school ends. So it just makes sense to put them on that time frame.
This is the lady that I also spoke with too. I support her. I think we, as a board, need to do a better job of helping not. Like one thing, David and I made a decision where we didn't even know we were impacting them. So education on how we're impacting these businesses would be great.
Yeah, like if the new board says, yada yada meeting or just remind them, because I have to be honest, I didn't my first year either.
No, I agree with that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Is our time up, Rachel?
No. There's a drop dead time of 9 o'clock.
Technology Committee.
Okay, so I did reach out to a couple board members. We've talked a little bit about how this appointment would go. I'm frustrated because it's been several months and it's been kicked down the line. In that time frame, we've actually received additional candidates, making the selection process that much harder. I think this board is in a position where we are doing our best to ensure that volunteers are welcomed and not kicked out. I will also say that I am no technology expert, nor am I a HR expert, and so for me to review these resumes of everybody coming in, that's not appropriate, I feel, for me to go ahead and sit down and say, you say you go, you say you go. I don't think it's appropriate for any of the committees to operate that way. In any capacity, I'd like to go ahead and propose and this goes along with the reorganization and the addressing of the committees moving forward. Something that I would like to try with this committee, I can apply up to 5, but no more than 5. I'd like to go ahead and appoint 3 in the position of a chair, a secretary, and a treasurer. Call this an experiment, if you will, when it comes to committees moving forward. I would like to have the chair as a contact person, as we do now. I would like to have a secretary, so that committee is responsible for their minutes to stop any confusion and finger pointing down the road. And I'd also like to go ahead and this wouldn't necessarily be entirely applicable for every committee, but a treasurer, and that would assist Brian and the treasurer on the CROA board in the wish list of their budget process moving forward. With that being said, I'd like to pick a date, work with Susan. I think Susan's been working with getting the technology applicants together, that we can all sit down in March between myself as the liaison and anybody that has applied, and sit down and figure it out as a group of who would like to take on those responsibilities. The individuals that do not go on that official committee, if you will, we would operate it just like a CROA board meeting, a CROA workshop, where you have the chair, secretary, and the treasurer up front. The chair is calling order of that meeting, keeping it in control, and the audience is additional members of that technology committee, or what committee it would be. So I'm asking for the board to allow me to meet with the applicants as a group in March and come back with what everybody has decided for the girls.
I have one, if I could, consideration
Yeah.
for you on that. I think that's a wonderful idea, and I think the volunteers should all be encouraged. We've had an issue over the years with getting the committee times on calendars and then communicating things about the committee. Would you consider just a person that can do that? They don't have to have an official title, but just a communications person? The secretary will do that?
Yeah.
Perfect, perfect.
Kevin, can I just ask for clarification? Are you, I think it's a wonderful idea, first off, but are you considering the 3 that you appoint them for the officer positions to then select the other 4 to be part of the committee? Or are you saying that only 3 would be on the committee?
So if I understand correctly, and let me know if I'm wrong, committees are open to the entire public. If a resident of the community would like to attend a committee meeting, they are welcome to do so.
They're just
Is that
not
right?
voting members.
They're not voting members.
Right.
So there would be 3 voting members, if we need that clarification. 3 voting members of this committee. We can have up to 5.
I think 5 is the imperative.
Oh, okay. Yeah, as long as the resolution covers that, that makes sense.
And we're going to talk about it and see, it's an experiment, really. It's an experiment to see if this model could work or be twisted to work for all committees moving forward.
Yeah, I think that sounds
Are we talking about all committees having the voting members and then
and non-voting members?
Then maybe 2 seats for non-voting members that they could bring in outside people, experts, and then have them actually be there but be non-voting.
That's essentially it. We're just allowing it to be whoever would like to be a part of that. Just some people have life going on.
So is part of the date kind of like an interview process? Kind of determining who might be the 3?
It would be explaining just that.
But who might be the 3?
And sitting down as adults and saying, I have a full open calendar, I can go ahead and be the chair.
But who might be the 3 that might bubble up?
And we'll sit down and I'll report that back for final approval.
So then that would be an approval option.
I think you're going to need to go to 5 because you got people on vacations, you got people can't make the meetings. If you go to 3, you're going to be, you may not end up with a quorum.
Yeah, technology committee starting off isn't going to be anything crazy, but I'll throw that out there and see how.
And that's an improvement.
More opinions.
Yeah,
on it.
they used to only have 2 members, so that's actually an improvement. The technology had 2. Motion to adopt Kevin's plan?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Any opposed?
Thank you, Kevin.
Motion carries. That's great. The other action 6A is Celebration 25 Steering Committee. Part of the resolution that we passed, I think, in December was that we would have representatives from CDD, from CROA, and from the foundation. We've done, that's already resolved. The foundation has proposed Gloria Neese and Paul Kinzer, and CROA has recommended
Ken Decor.
Ken Decor, who's a 6-month employee at TCC
He's
right
the
now.
new Jim Parker, yeah, he's their
Replacing Jim
NRC
Parker.
person.
And Gary Moyer asked that their decision be deferred until their March meeting. I had done invitations back in December, once we did approval to all of these, and that's the feedback we have. So we need to approve those 3 at this point. CROA does not have a second person to put their name forward. So part of the motion was that, part of the resolution was that the CROA board had to approve.
Motion to approve?
Thank you, Debbie.
Second.
Second from Vaughn. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Action item 7, approve a change order for sod.
Would you like to do 7 and 8 together?
Well, 7 and 8, okay. And you talked about both of those.
I did.
You talked about the utility easement?
Yeah, the utility easement is for the ECDD for water utilities. And it has been reviewed by all parties involved, from the general contractor to the engineer to our owner's rep and our legal counsel.
Is it bad? Is it
No, it's just, there's no dollar amount assigned to it. You
But I mean,
just have
is
to
it-
give them an easement to put the water
Is it a
lines.
lot of feet? Is it,
It's
can you
the-
just tell me what it is?
Yeah, the diagram's in the board packet,
Right.
but it's, I don't remember the exact amount of feet, but it's
Yeah.
the required amount that they need to put the
Okay.
lines in.
Okay.
It's standard operating procedure for
No,
getting the lines.
you don't have any
No,
worries?
and there were no attorney issues either when it was reviewed.
Thank you. Okay.
And item 7, you talked about in your management report about the
Correct.
sod.
Yeah.
I move to approve the action items.
Second.
All right, thank you, Jack, and second by Brian. Any further discussion?
I just have a question. Are we paying for the better side? There was 2 options. You had Celebration,
Yes.
and then you
We're,
had 419.
we're paying for the sod that I am recommending based on my years of experience running athletic fields. The 419 is the sod that will hold up underneath the amount of play that we're going to have out there on this.
Steve, can you just do me a favor? When they deliver the sod, can you just go and eyeball that it doesn't look like it's got all the,
Yeah, there's actually a
Scary
meeting
things.
tomorrow morning
Testing.
where Todd will be out there with them talking about the grading of the fields. There's been soil samples done to make sure that when the sod's put down, it's on good soil. There's a final grading left. Everyone is all over making sure we get good sod on this.
Yellowstone will be involved in it as well, right?
Yellowstone will be involved. They were involved in the soil sampling to ensure that they have the proper soil, but they'll be
was this all
involved in
from the
maintenance.
hurricane? Like the hurricane caused all this, or?
It's just a local root disease that took place here, but this is the real reason why we have to make the change orders due to having consistent sod throughout that whole area.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve roof repairs of 6 pavilions and 2 stage posts at Lakeside Park by CN Prestige in the amount of $6,100.
So moved.
Thank you, Debbie.
Second.
Second from Jackson. Any discussion? Do we need any, I think the materials were pretty clear.
I'm surprised at the variation in the cost. $6,100 from CN.
Absolutely, from the different vendors.
$30,000
Yeah.
from Melick. What's this?
Yeah.
Do you need me to?
5 times the amount.
Go ahead.
The Melick didn't quite understand the scope, and they kind of merged some other projects into that. We tried to get them to revise it. They still didn't get it, so didn't really want that contractor taking posts out for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If they don't understand.
Exactly.
If they don't understand, you want to go there. All right. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is roof repairs, approving roof repairs North Village and South Village Townhome Service Areas from Performance Roofing in the amount of $12,000, and that's divided among those 2 service areas from the replacement reserves.
So moved.
Thank you, Jack.
Second.
Second from Jackson.
I'd like quick discussion if I can.
Please.
I understand this is legal, so we're gonna have a hard time, but I do think that we need to put our heads together and find the process moving forward, perhaps renegotiate minimums for when performance comes out, because that's their minimum per address, correct? The $750? Am I on the right thing?
That's the price they've been paying.
So
They've been
that's a
charging.
minimum, whether it's, walking in just to check it's a drip or not. I'd also like to make sure that the residents are understanding that there's a minimum. So we do need to know everything that happens, but at the same time, is there an agreement that we can have with performance? Maybe we guarantee you X dollars per month, but, because we're spending a lot of money.
Well, Kevin, I'll take it one step further. I think when we get the new board in place in March, we need to have a workshop where we talk just about roofing in general, because it's very difficult to find good roofing contractors. And then when we hire an owner's rep to look over that, there's some discrepancies in what the owner's rep is saying should be done versus the roofing experts. And we really need to have a conversation about a philosophy on trying to get good roofing vendors to come into Celebration.
Just like attorneys, their opinion is the only opinion.
Well, no, I've had a couple people tonight just bend my ear about roofing and all that type of stuff. I think there's a real issue here.
We need to
And
review.
I think it's across the board. I mean, we're struggling to find good roofing vendors to be able to do the work. And performance has been one of them in the past, but we see some of the issues with this that we're dealing with.
And in these particular service areas, we are talking about the litigation, and so we've got an executive session scheduled, I believe, to talk through some of this after the new board has been elected. I mean, I think this ought to be one of the priorities for the new board, is to get into executive session and talk through this and bring the new members up to speed. These are not one-off problems. These are long-term challenges. So
I'd like to add one more comment just while I have you.
And I would like to, after you.
For when these invoices come out, can we request that performance gives us more of a specific, because I don't think we see what specifically they were doing. I'd like to know what specifically they did at each call out. So when that invoice says $750, every single one, they always say that? I don't think they always do.
They perform a water test at each of the locations when there's a leak.
It's fairly generic, is I guess what my concern is.
But they do
that,
perform a water test
Yeah.
to try to pinpoint the location, and then they will do repairs with shingles, flashing,
Yeah, it says
whatever
a lot
is
of things like
required.
if needed, it's very, very generic. I'd like to know what it actually did.
Okay.
If that's okay with
Mhm.
everybody
Yeah.
else.
Detail the work.
So I learned a lot while I was on the board, but one of the things I learned more than I really thought I needed to know about was about roofs. And that is, roofs are very important. The engineer on this project that wrote the report, his name is Lance. He does a project that's free for any homeowners association that's interested, that I think you guys may be interested or not, for the new board, and it's called something about Project Nightmare. I'll think of the title in a minute and I can email you. Basically, Lance has done roofs and his family has been in roofing for over 20 years. He's actually a certified roofing engineer. We had long discussions, and had he provided a manual to our HOA or to the management company that had the specifics in it we needed, which would run about $3,000, he said, we could use that for all the roofs ever in our community. I believe it would have saved us about $1 million. So I think it's important that we have a licensed, certified roofing engineer develop a manual that can be used for all future RFPs for roofs. Part of the problem with this project, and I won't get into specifics because it's under litigation, out of respect for Jackson, but there were so many errors made, and we won't say by who, that I think it's important that we take this as an opportunity and move forward as a homeowners association. One of the positions we don't have, and you guys have been challenged in so many ways, you're in a position where you're having to make decisions about construction, about projects. You guys are faced with this all the time, and I don't believe you have a background in engineering or construction management, or I'm not sure what training we're providing for Susanna, but maybe there's some more training we can provide for her. But if we had a licensed, certified engineer that developed the specs for our projects in the future, I believe it would save us hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Debbie, if I heard you originally, you said that Lance offers this service
For
free
free.
of charge to boards.
Yeah.
So I think this board and all boards would always benefit from education, and with that, we'll continue that conversation when the next board comes in.
For the $3,000, why haven't we done it in the past?
He just said that was the rough cost for the manual. What the manual has to do, it has to look at your county, whatever county you're in, and determine what the specs are for your county. For example, the shingles that were used for the roof for these projects were not to code. He would have known that, and he would have checked with the county. Also, what I learned is when the roofs are inspected, the inspector drives up, turns off his engine, it reports on the GPS he is there. He does not get up on the roof or look at the roof. There is no inspection physically of the roof. So we really had no way until the roof started leaking.
Mr. Anderson, can I just say, vendors have an obligation to communicate to the management team on services that they provide so that we can then communicate that back to the board. And it can become problematic if each one of the individual board members go out and start contacting these vendors and having these conversations with them. We would love to know about the $3,000 manual.
Well,
we'd love to have that conversation with them.
Yeah.
So we'll follow up with them, but I think that that's the best practice, is for them to go through us.
And I understand that. I understand that, Steve, but we
real
waited
quick,
for this
if I
report
could just
for
finish real
months.
quick, please.
Mhm.
The problem that we're really facing right now for Susanna and for Todd and for any of us that are working with roofs, none of us are roofing experts, even if we went to school for a long period of time to catch up. So we hire an owner's rep. We just hired Delta to be an owner's rep on one of our service areas, and we hire Performance Roofing
But
to
they
do
weren't
the roofing.
licensed, yeah.
And there's conflicts
Mhm.
between them on certified roofing engineers versus certified roofers. They don't see eye to eye. They don't agree. So we're learning too as we go, and we're trying. Everything that we're doing is for the greater good of the community. And we're struggling just to get a project closed out because the two entities can't see eye to eye. So there are a lot of variables involved in roofing, and we need the experts to do
Absolutely.
this.
I didn't know there was so much
Okay.
on roofings. Wait, out of all due respect, hold on.
I've called the
We
question.
waited,
Thank you. Question's been called.
we waited for the report for 2
All-
months.
all-
I've called the question.
Thank you. All in favor of this motion for approving $12,000? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item, action item 11. The motion is to approve the installation of replacement gutters and downspouts for Roseville Corner Center service area by American Seamless Gutters. The amount is $36,353.
So moved.
Thank you,
I'll
Jack.
second for discussion.
Second from Kevin.
Was this roof already completed?
Yes, the roof was
This roof was
completed.
completed? Everything else is ready to go?
do you mean, everything else?
Previous on townhouses, on service areas, we did the gutters and then we did the roof, or there's been an order that was
Typically,
changed?
the gutters get done with the roof. In this case, the owners asked the roof to be done early, so the funds weren't available to do
Okay.
the gutters at the time, so it had to,
So the owners encouraged the process to be
The
Yes.
process to be
correct.
late, make it a
Okay.
two-step process.
And I do send updates to them, so, well, you get them, so you should know.
So they shouldn't, the problem with the columns won't be they won't have pulled any of the downspouts off because
No,
of the columns.
those aren't connected to any downspouts, sir.
Susan, were you going to
Those
say
still
something?
aren't fixed,
I,
though.
I was just gonna say.
No, but we have a meeting scheduled soon on that.
The typically, what the roofers have said and the engineers have said is that the gutters are part of the roofing system, so typically they go together. They had to remove those in order to replace the
The roof.
the roof. And so here we are, now it's time, we've got the money to replace the gutters.
But these gutters are going to stay up for several years without any issues? We're not
Until the
reinstalling
reserve
them,
study
not-
says, yeah.
Hopefully, a lot
You know
more
what I mean?
several.
Not like previous gutters. Cool.
Any further discussion? Okay, let's, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is, is that the owner's rep?
Yep.
Motion,
Item 12, correct.
Yes.
approve the invoices for the owner's rep for Roseville Corner Badella Engineering, $11,062.01.
Is this it for them, or is it done?
We have a motion? You making
Oh,
a
I'm sorry.
motion?
Discussion. Motion to.
Okay, from Vaughn, second
Second.
from Jackson.
Discussion. Do we
I'm
have
sorry.
any more payments after this to do?
I believe there will be another one, but I will call them to discuss it, because I feel like at this point, the
They should be
charges are becoming unreasonable.
Yeah.
Well, this is what I'm talking about, where we have this dispute between the two, and it's dragging on and costing more money. At some point, we got to close it out, but we want to close it out with a solid roof that's not going to leak.
Right. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Anderson, before you read these next, can I ask that
Please.
you do a consent for item 13, 14, and 14A? They're all Artisan Park agenda items.
13 and 14?
And 14A, all three of those combined
And 14A,
together.
oh, 14A.
Their
Okay.
approval of artisan
Okay,
expenditures.
so we're okay with the, Jackson's made the motion and Vaughn seconded, so we're going to put them together. Discussion on these. The first was Artisan Park Service Area for $78.47 for excess administrative fees paid to CROA during 2018. It's part of the arrangement. If the expense wasn't incurred, then it gets reimbursed.
Correct, the CROA board
Right,
last
CROA
year
board.
committed
Right.
to that.
This is totally legitimate.
Yeah, yeah, and that's something that was part of the negotiation a year or two ago.
Right.
A motion to ratify the approval of a reserve fund expenditure for well lighting? Is that
No, that's not correct. 14 is a motion to ratify the approval from the Club Improvement Fund up to but not exceeding $39,700 to have soundstage AV specialists install the recommended
Okay.
acoustic treatment.
Yeah, that's the updated one.
And
And 14 is the other one.
ratify
You're good
the
with both of
approval.
these, Jackson?
Huh?
You're good with both of
I
these?
am, I'm good with
All
all
three
of
of
them.
them.
And 14A?
14A is the delivering a 30-day notice of termination to the cleaning service and hiring a new cleaning service.
Right, hiring
Just for-
citywide cleaners.
Just for our own knowledge, was it for performance or savings?
It was both. It was both.
Okay.
All of both.
Okay.
I move to approve.
We already have the motion.
So we have the motion,
I have a
and
second.
Vaughn has just called the question. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 15, motion to approve, initiate the fining process for 20 non-compliance items.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Jack and seconded by Jackson. Any discussion? Moves it over to covenants. All in favor?
Is that, wait a second, the revised on this is, yeah, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh, so it's, what is that? Oh, total is 14. The revised number is 14. Thank you, Jack. Any further discussion?
Yes, I have not had the opportunity to go through the revised one, so I need to abstain. That's all. It's okay.
Okay.
Didn't have time to look at it.
We all set? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Abstain.
Motion carries. Next item is motion to approve to convert 3 fines to specific assessments.
I think it's 2.
I'm sorry, it's now 2.
2.
Yes, one of them was rectified.
Jack has moved. Jack has made the motion.
On what you sent out, which one was rectified, 1, 2, or 3?
It was 2.
The second one is deleted.
Okay.
Or done. And did we have a second?
Second.
Second from Jackson. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve 1 attorney recommended write-off totaling $430.25.
You missed number 17.
You missed number.
Did I miss one?
17.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, 17. Motion to approve 4 service areas, intent to lien letters to owners delinquent more than 1 assessment.
Is that number correct? 'Cause
I don't have an update.
is it no
There's
update?
no update.
So moved.
Jack has moved.
Second.
Second from Brian. Multiple versions, that's
It's hard.
Yeah,
It's hard.
3 versions here.
electronic print, another print.
We apologize, but some things come at
I
the
know,
last
I
minute,
know.
and we do our best to give them to
Fine.
you, so.
It's good.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 18, motion to approve 1 attorney recommended write-off
Motion to approve?
from Debbie.
Second.
Discussion.
Second from Kevin.
Susan, can you give me a follow-up on this?
Yes, absolutely. Kevin, I'm just writing your name.
Sorry.
This is the one that we tabled to this meeting. And in this particular case, the attorney negotiated with the homeowner to collect more than what is statutorily allowed. And so the way payments are applied are late fees and interest first, attorney's fees, and then assessments. So they paid 1 capital contribution. It was almost at the same day that everything happened. It went from the old owner to the bank to the new owner. And so he negotiated so that we collected the assessments, we collected everything except for that portion of a second capital contribution.
That's 2 separate owners.
That's 2 separate owners,
They only
that's
went
right.
after
And
one
we
owner.
had put 2 capital contributions on the
On the newest owner.
No, on the account. And so when he negotiated with the bank and the new owner, this is what he negotiated, that we write off $430 of the $949.72. Is that right? So,
I don't think we have much of a choice. I mean, I think Kevin's asked some good questions, but there's really no choice here.
I think your other option is to go back to the attorney and say, we don't accept your negotiation.
Well, the attorney they only get paid directly, so it's not any additional cost. We went back to the attorney and said, get the money.
Right.
I'd rather go ahead and just kick it back and turn around and say, get the money and see what happens. It doesn't cost us anything else, but that's just me.
This isn't because of adaptive bankruptcy or anything like that.
no, it doesn't have anything to do. It was a mortgage foreclosure, the bank took title, and now the new owner has title, who are paying their assessments moving forward.
So you have a motion? Is there
Ready to
a motion
vote?
over there just-
Yeah, we have a motion.
The motion was to approve.
We have a motion and a second. We're ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Was that, that's in it, just to be clear, okay. So 1 nay, Rachel. Okay.
19.
Last item is motion to approve 1 payment plan request.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Debbie.
Second.
Second from Jackson, and that was approved by, or recommended by management.
I do have a comment.
What was the total amount?
$53.28. Oh.
6 months payment.
Yeah, oh, they're paying, he said.
Look at the payment plan.
Isn't it
Yeah, it's a
1,800?
payment plan.
Yeah,
Okay.
with three,
Yeah.
yeah, you waive the late fee, but you're
They're
gonna.
gonna pay 6 months, $300. So over 6 months, they'll resolve
So you
their,
accelerated next year's into this?
We accelerated to the end of
Yeah,
this
because
year.
if you look at the
Yeah.
balance, it's 311 and 562, so I mean, 1,800 is more than that, obviously, so it must be covering.
Yeah.
To the end of this year.
Okay, so move.
Second.
So that's from Jack and then from Brian, I think? Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Last item on the agenda before adjournment is board comments.
I have one.
Please?
I would like to say thank you to this community for electing me not once, but twice to the CROA board. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve you these past 4 years. Together, we have fought the addition of 1,000 kids to our school, built a world-class dog park, thanks to Steve and Dory and team, after fighting over why we need a civil engineer. We have spent more hours in this room than I care to remember, but I have learned a lot, I have grown a lot, and I have made some enemies. For that, I apologize for the enemies. But I wanted to thank all the volunteers, from the smallest volunteer, Ainsley Parrish, who at 9 years old assisted us with the Kissimmee Police Department Canine Project, to the oldest, and I will not disclose her age because she's a female. They've all made a difference. I value and appreciate everyone, every hour you volunteered, every event you've volunteered for and contributed to. I've lived here 22 years with my family, raised 4 children from age 2. They're now 32 is the oldest, and my daughter, who went to our K through 8 in Celebration High School, K through 12, now teaches her very first year at our 4th grade at our K through 8 Celebration School. I love this community. I'm grateful. I want to say a huge thank you to David Anderson for being our fearless leader and president. At times, I'm sure he regretted that decision, but I appreciate you very much. To the new not new, but the newest 4 board members, you're halfway through. Good luck. I'm grateful for what each of you have taught me. To Kevin, for the many, many cups of coffee at Starbucks, thank you. You are fabulous, and I still want a copy of that speech. To my friends and family, and to my husband, Don, your support did not go unnoticed. It's time to get in that airstream and enjoy our new freedom for 9 combined years on CROA. My husband served 5 and I 4. Thank you all very much.
I'd like to thank Jack and Debbie for taking all the years out of your family's lives to sit here hours and days on end. I can't imagine how much time you both put in here. So
You'll never imagine. I have one thing to say. Move to adjourn.
I need 30 seconds, just please.
we adjourn.
Allow me 30 seconds, please, very quickly. I want to say also, we know for a fact that Jack and Debbie will not be coming back for the next board meeting. Mr. Anderson is up for election, but I want to say thank you to all 3 of you. And I want to remind the community, and we'll talk more about this next Wednesday, but this is a volunteer position. And whether you agree with the decisions that were made, the conversations that have been had, all 3 of these folks are very passionate about this community. They love this community, and the things that they did and discussed at these meetings was because of their love for this community. So thank you very much for your time. It's been an honor working with you 3, and we'll see what happens in March. So we'll go from there. But thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Steve. And just as we are honoring Jack's request to adjourn, I want to thank this board of 7. This is our last formal time together that I'm aware of.
You got one more meeting.
No, we have one more meeting, the annual meeting. But thank you for staying with it, for being good partners. We have struggled through a lot, but we have had, I think, good, and for the most part, 99.9% of the time, very civil dialogue. And I think it's all about the betterment of the community. And I appreciate this opportunity to work with each of you, and who knows what the future will bring. But thank you all. And Jack, did you want to make?
And JR?
Jack's going on the back board.
Thank you. Another successful copy of the magazine, which I have to admit I was not in favor of, but it looks beautiful, and thank you for printing my article.
So a motion to adjourn, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Good.
Debbie, can I use your name tag in case I want to discuss something controversial on the board here from now on? Can I borrow